Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Friday, August the 16th, 2019. I'm your host, Kerry Holzman, and joining me, a very special guest, Lady Kaka. No, I'm sorry, my sister Linda.
Hi, everybody.
And you're not mic'd up, so you're going to have to project.
Hi, everybody.
There she is. So the reason she's here today is I'm going to put a camera in her hands so we don't just have this standard static camera during the build. We got a really nice build set up for you today with lots of high-end top-shelf parts, and I want to make sure we get good, sharp video of the how-to. And in this case, we're building a fantastic gaming machine, and this is going to Midi. This is Midi's second computer that he's ordered from me. And I think he's in the chat room today. I'll give a shout out to everybody in the chat room. Hello, everybody. And is my audio and video in sync? Just kind of glancing through.
Also, Lady Kaka, really? That was really?
Ooh, did I do it wrong?
Yes.
Wasn't that her name?
No.
Billie Eilish?
That's better. I'll take that. That's better than Lady Kaka.
I didn't name her. Chester Hughes has contributed $2. Thank you, Chester. And a contribution from Madi. There he is in the chat room, $5. Hey, thank you, Madi. And I think everything is good to go. I think. We're only broadcasting in 720. Is that what they tell me? Let's take a quick look at some settings.
You see that? Be nice to your sister.
I'm nice to my sister. You should see me when I'm mean. What's my output? Is my output at 1080? Where's my output at 720? Oh yeah, I am outputting at 720. Hold on, I'm gonna stop and restart here for a second. Justin Habu's contributed $10. He says, I just finished an i7 8700K workstation build for someone who's in real estate. Oh, does real estate appraising and is into stock trading. Use two Samsung 970 EVO NVMe 1TB drives and two Radeon RX 590s for more monitor outs. Sounds like a heck of a build. I'm sure it'll be a fast and long-lasting computer. Hold on, I'm gonna have to start and stop and restart the stream after changing the resolution out to 1080. You may have to refresh, I'm not sure. It should only be a moment. All right, we're gonna try this one more time. Hopefully audio and video are still in sync and should be broadcasting now in good old 1080. And we got about almost 500 people in the chat. Welcome in, everybody. We're just getting started here on this very nice gaming computer build. Yeah, you say the best gaming computer is, no it isn't. Ultimate gaming computer, no it isn't. Great gaming computer, I have 800 core i7 9900Ks with an NVIDIA 3125D Ti. Better than yours, that's the ultimate. Sorry, was I doing all that out loud?
That all happened, yeah. Was that as a result of our thumbnail? Because I think I called it the ultimate gaming PC.
I don't know. I just know what I'm going to hear.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look forward to their videos.
Right? All right. So, let's see here. Jonathan Fazani says, we're in 1080 and in sync. Right on. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. If, let's just type in because they can't hear me.
It says offline. Live stream offline.
Yeah, you have to hit refresh.
Oh.
No, you're right. It still says it's offline, but I'm broadcasting. See, I'm broadcasting. What happened? Did it switch to a different video feed? Let's see. This is odd. It does show I'm offline, but it also shows I'm online. So
Back on, just click live.
yeah, now it's going. So it's a little slow.
Okay,
Refresh
now.
that one more time. Why is my live orange? I thought that was red.
Probably because it's not happy.
Well, 1080 is offered. We're good there.
They're saying it's back.
Yeah, it's 1080 now. So you might have to refresh the page, but it is 1080 now.
Is that Mitch under the bag?
What's left of them.
What's left of him?
All right, so everybody's confirming we're in 1080. That's great. Lost a few viewers in that transition, but I'm sure they'll come back. So that being said, Carrie is your sister in, never mind that. Jeremiah Beckwith has contributed $2 and says, hey, Carrie, and says, hey, thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
The Crow's Nest says, hello again, Carrie, from Scunthorpe, UK. Love all your content. Spent hours watching your vids. You've taught me a lot. I am now running my own business here, so thanks for everything.
Nice.
Yeah, somebody owes me fish and chips. It's like a...
Are there any left? I think I ate all the fish and chips.
In England?
You go to England and they're like, nope, sorry. Fish is out.
All right. Just waiting for things to settle in here for a minute, guys. Looks like when I stopped and restarted, it goes above a lot of viewers' ability to hit refresh and come back. Not do I want to insult them, but
We should make a
given
video.
that there's half as many now as there were, they can't hear me.
Takes them a second. We should make a video.
They should make a video, how to watch a video.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's YouTube though, so in all fairness, it could be a YouTube issue. All right. See, I'm nice to everybody. Wesley Green says hello from sunny Barbados. We're just waiting for a few more people to get back in here. We're going to start the build. Here we go. We're back up over 500, which is closer to where we were. Getting ready to start. I'm just stalling for giving people a chance to come back in now that we've got everything up and running. And we'll just go from that.
Should we see if anybody has any questions before we get started?
Yeah, does anybody have any technical questions? We can we'll do our best to answer your questions. What do you got? Technical questions only, please. John Craig has contributed £5. He says, fish is only in short supply until Brexit. Then all will be well.
Well, that might be my fault, John. Sorry.
Jim Desposito's contributed $2. Thank you to Jim. Again, if you have any technical questions, this will be the time to ask as we wait for people to jump in and join us here and start the build. Carrie, are you self-taught? You didn't have a choice. If you were around in 1981 looking to take a class on computers, good luck finding one. So you had to learn it because, and the technology was changing so fast that the classes they were offering, even in the 90s, were about 2 years behind the technology. Jesse Kirk has contributed $5. Carrie, you and your sister are awesome. Good to see you both this Friday evening. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for your continued support. Darren Gordon Curls contributed $2.50 Canadian and says, greetings from Nova Scotia, Canada. Well, greetings, Darren. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for supporting the channel. All the parts for today's build and all the links to all the tools and those little lazy Susan and all these things people always ask about, it's always in the video notes below the video with links.
Yeah. And
let's see what else we have. Carrie, you're only going to put one 1080 Ti in this computer. I put in the computer whatever the customer orders. When you want to order two 1080 Ti's and pay for them, I'm happy to put them in and configure them for you. We're not building this computer for that guy though, right?
Definitely not.
So no, we're not putting in what you want into somebody else's computer. But thank you for your question.
This is for Madi, right?
Madi, yes, has contributed $20. He says, thank you, Linda, for helping your brother. Thomas Beckenstowe has contributed $5. Thanks, both of you. Thanks for supporting the channel.
Yes, thank you.
A lot of Canadians in the chat room today. Thomas says, so basically you have no qualifications. Nope, none whatsoever.
No.
Just help create the technology, published journalist, published author,
but you need a
nationwide.
You need a piece of paper that you
from
paid
DeVry
for.
that you owe student loans on.
A piece of paper from.
So they can teach me from the book I wrote.
Right, from a school that maybe might not be even business anymore, from the stuff that you might have learned in 1999.
So, yeah, completely unqualifiable.
I think qualifications in technology are weird anyways, because what you learn is obsolete so quick. You always have to be self-taught if you want to make it in this business. You cannot just get a degree from somewhere and expect to be successful for the rest of your life in this business.
I do have a degree. It's just not in computers. But be that as it may, you know, you can always ask for your money back if you feel like you're being ripped off. Okay, so thank you for the questions. What else you got? Should I install a Ryzen 7 or an Intel 7? Should I order the chicken or should I order the steak?
I like the fish.
I didn't ask you if you like the fish. Tell me what I like and how much I should spend and how much I should eat. And also tell me what clothes I should wear and how I should cut my hair. It's your computer. If you want somebody else to make the decision for you, buy an Apple. Let's see. Just looking through to see if I missed any questions. Actual technical questions, not the silliness. Patrick Rousseau says hello.
Hi, Patrick.
Got about 676 people joining us now. Donnie Seegers contributed $2.
Carrie, why does my mouse get lost? Because it's wireless.
I don't know why does my mouse get lost? What does that even mean?
I don't know, but I'm assuming if it had a wire, it'd be harder to lose.
Maybe it just needs a bigger mouse cursor and he's not seeing it because it's moving too fast, or maybe
I was assuming the actual physical mouse.
See, this is the problem with some technical questions. If you're not clear, the answer can't be very clear. If you get cold, just go stand in a corner because it's 90 degrees. Corner.
Oh
90
my
degrees.
God.
Ah, it was good. It was good.
I thought you had to be a dad to make those kind of jokes.
Well, I might be. I haven't got any Father's Day cards in the mail yet, but tomorrow's another day. Will a Mugen 5 be okay with an i7 Ryzen? I don't even know what that is. Is that like
all of them.
Is that like a Chevy Ford?
It's all of them.
Would my Chevy Ford be okay with that gas? Would my Ford Chevy? Even Rich Robbins said that was a bad joke.
It was terrible.
Wah, wah. Is an i9 9900K better or worse than a Ryzen 9 3900X? Which is better? Well, for somebody who does a lot of work where they need a lot of cores in production, the Ryzen is better. If somebody's gaming, the Intel is better. But if somebody does a little of both, it's really up to you to decide what's better. What's better, chicken or the steak? Your taste is your taste, your budget's your budget, your expectations are uniquely yours. There's no such thing as better except as you as a person define it individually. What is better for you is not better for literally anybody else on the planet. It's just you. Past Me has contributed €5. Thank you, Past Me. Carrie, do you think programming is a good thing to start learning? It certainly can't hurt. It certainly help you understand the way computers function and the limitations with regards to security and exploits that exist due to the nature of programming. But having said that, where I would lead into beyond that for real money would be in cybersecurity. That's going to continue to be an issue and a big money maker for people that know how programming works and why these exploits exist and how to best correct them. Paul Newman says that 9900K is one hot CPU. Hope the cooler can handle it. We've had numerous people here in the chat stating they are using the 9900K with the Mugen 5 with no issues at all. So we'll check it, we'll make sure. Lucas doesn't think that air cooler will cool that 9900 quite right. Are you speaking from experience or you just read a lot of articles and watch a lot of videos? I'm going to guess he's never actually done it.
Well, you can watch this one and see it done and find out.
Yeah, probably won't change anything though. Probably still say that. It should cool it fine. But if it doesn't, I have other coolers. But I expect the Mugen 5 will cool the 9900K with no issues at all. But we'll see. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. We're at 760 people watching, so I guess we're about ready to get started now. Anybody else want to take over and tell me I don't have any experience and all these parts are the wrong parts? Just go ahead and get that out of your system right now. Speak now, let it out. You have impulse control. Everything's competitive.
Or just send us a link to your video.
Yeah, send us a link to your video that shows it, or you know, if you don't like it, leave maybe, or show me how it's done. I just want to make sure everybody gets it out. Since they have no impulse control, I want to make sure. Let's do it now so we can start the build. You don't want to be interrupted and, you know, end up getting 3/4 of the way done and finish it and it's perfect and find out it was all wrong. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen. Give it to the customer and have a happy customer only to find out it doesn't work at all. Even though it passes all its tests and everybody's happy, somebody watching doesn't approve. So let's just make sure we're good before we begin. Wim has got a 9900K with a Mugen 5 and says it barely hits 85 degrees centigrade under full load for multiple hours. So there you go.
Did we watch Wim's build video a few months back? Did he do? I think he did a build video.
I can't remember. I've had so much going on. All right. Okay. Is Carrie being rude? Carrie's a mirror. I think it's fair to say I'm a mirror. When you're courteous and thoughtful and kind, I am more.
The video it was well done, Wim.
More courteous and thoughtful and kind. And when you're thoughtless and think you're superior, well, I exhibit that right back at you. So you get what you give here. But we do have a lot of supportive people. The vast majority of people in the chat here are very supportive and very kind individuals. And of course, that's not directed to you folks. Who's better at building PCs, you or your sister? Have you ever built a computer?
Yeah, I built servers several years ago.
Servers.
I feel like I could do it if I had to, but when your brother is Carrie, like, just have him do it. Then it'll be perfect, and I don't have to worry about bending pins. It's actually, that's the question. It's not, can I build a PC or how many have I built? It's how many bent pins have I created in the process?
How many wires have you cut doing the cable management?
So many. It's like Hulk smash. It's better to let him do it. He has the gentler touch.
All right, let's take a look and see if I've missed any other final questions before we get started here. Eddie's looking forward to the build. Yeah, me too. Matt's Olav has said, Carrie, I've created a dual boot of Windows 10, 64, and 32-bit. Why don't I get the blue page sometime? I don't know why you'd have a dual boot. You get rid of the dual boot, your problems go away. What is your thoughts on Air? I like Air. Pro Air.
Air what? Air cooling?
I just think he means air. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Fritzer has contributed 10 bucks. Says, thank you for your videos. I finished a Corsair Crystal 570X case with a Maximus 11, 32 gigs Corsair LP memory and 2 terabyte Crucial SSD with a GTX 1070 with a 4 terabyte HDD for storage. Nice. And Jan Mikhailov has contributed €5. Thank you to Jan. Thank you both for supporting the channel.
Thank you.
And always happy to hear about your successes from people that are inspired to build their own machine. It'll be the best machine you've ever owned. I promise it'll be the fastest, most reliable machine.
Oh, he didn't say air. Did he say AR?
Air. R.
R?
R.
Pirates are good. Did he mean AI?
I don't know what he meant.
Maybe he meant AI.
If I knew what he meant, I could have answered his question without him having to ask it. I'm just not that good. Oh, Wim's got his build video. Right there's a link to it. Thanks for sharing that, Wim. Yeah, definitely check out his build video because he's built a 9900K with the Mugen 5.
ARM.
ARM?
Yes. What are your thoughts on ARM? Android.
What difference does it make? My thoughts have no impact on the industry. They won't sell more or less processors. They won't be more or less successful. I really don't have any thoughts about it, to be honest. It's a product I'm looking at that contains it. If the product that contains an ARM processor is one I want, then I buy the product, but not because of the processor. At least, like, I'm not going, oh, which ARM processor does this have? Like, I'm looking at it as a smartphone, for example, fast enough or you have a good battery life. I'm not necessarily looking at what Wi-Fi chip it's got. K. Cordius Technology says that's the problem with the world today. Too many opinions about other people's builds. Well, it's no different than them looking at the plate of food you order at the restaurant and criticizing you for ordering the most disgusting thing on the menu, which just happens to be your favorite that you've been eating for years. And who asked that person? You know, it seems that people think that their opinion matters, whether you ask them or not. And then you ask them what qualifies your opinion as being something I should care about. What have you done? Who are you? Then they get offended. Are you suggesting I'm nobody? Heard. Like, well, I didn't ask for it. You approached me as if you were somebody whose opinion mattered to me, and I don't even know who you are or what you've accomplished in your life. So, thank you. Have a nice day. I don't know. What do you do? It's weird. It's a weird.
People come up to you and give you their unsolicited opinion, which might be contrary to what you believe in what you're doing. And then when you call them out on it, then they say you're the rude one.
Yeah. David Kane's contributed $5. He says, I might want to run an extra fan on that Mugen. I did, and I'm glad I did. All right, David. Thank you for your support. I don't think it's necessary, but we'll see what's going to happen. We'll see what's going to happen. You can place your bets. Madi wants to see that 2080 Ti. We're getting there. Andrew says he's from Lancashire, UK. I'm inspired by you, and I'm starting to build computers as soon as possible. Did I mispronounce it? It looked like you cringed when I said Lancashire. Lancashire. Lancashire.
Lancashire.
Lancashire. Lancashire. I'm just saying it the way it's spelled.
Lancashire.
I wish those English people understood English.
They invented it. That's what my friends tell me. If I tell them they pronounce something wrong, they're like, we invented the language.
Basil? Oregano? What is it? Basil and oregano.
Yeah, basil and oregano.
You talk funny.
And aluminium.
That's right, add that extra I in there. Love the British. I do. But unlike you, you've been there. I haven't been there.
Twice.
Leave some fish and chips for me, that's all I'm saying.
Nope.
I will make it there one day. Okay, so 839 people watching. I think this is a good time to get started. How far are we into this right now? Why do I not have a clock running? Isn't that weird? Usually, oh, it's up here. 25 minutes. Okay. Lars says hello from Denmark. I see Stephen Bernstein joining us. Hey, Stephen. I love it when I see these familiar names in the chat. James Ramey's contributed $2. Thank you, James. Irving T joins us all the way from France. Kerry, what do you think about Intel Hades Canyon? I haven't really seen it much except for the Gen 8 Nook, I think, has the Hades Canyon with the skull on it. All the Intel chips are the same. They just, each generation is a little better. I don't think any next generation Intel chip is worse than any of the chips that have come out. So I would say it's an improvement over previous chips, and then Ice Lake will be an improvement over that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty consistent, has been for about 20 years. So when it comes to what my opinion is, too many people focus too much of their thought on the CPU and not on the motherboard or the chipset. So you can buy a really nice, fast Ferrari and put an old, used set of tires on it. Doesn't make any sense. At the same time, by focusing solely on the tires, you can get the best tires made and spend $2,000 on tires and rims and put it on a $200 car, but that $200 car isn't going to be any faster. You could put hubcaps on a lawnmower too if you want to. So if your focus is only on the hubcaps or your focus is only on the tires, you're not really taking into account everything that's attached to. So each individual chip, when you say, what do you think of ARM, or what do you think of the Ryzen, or what do you think of the Intel, blah, 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 depends on how it's going to be used and what other hardware it's paired with. That chip plugs into a motherboard. And if you buy a $900 CPU and a $75 motherboard, I just don't think you're going to be happy with it. In fact, I found a lot of the recent Ryzen 3 tests, the Ryzen 3000 tests, were run on the most expensive motherboard you can buy. And they said, wow, look how great this chip is. But how many people are going to put a $400 chip on a $300 motherboard. I don't really see that happening very often. In most cases, the motherboards on these chips run about $150 on average. So they spent darn near twice as much for the motherboard. And wouldn't you know it, all the performance tests came out really well. So the real test should be, take that CPU out and try it in a number of different motherboards. And then tell me, again, how that CPU is superior. Because it's not going to be across the board. It'll be better with some boards, it'll perform better. It may even perform more reliably on some boards than others, different chipsets. There's a lot of variables there, including the RAM, of course. The RAM speed makes a big difference on Ryzen, or it can, not so much on Intel, because of the Infinity Fabric.
I don't know what that is.
Some guy sitting around a marketing room goes, we need to come up with a real clever name that ties into
Do I need that for my
comic
mesh
books.
Wi-Fi?
Infinity Fabric for your mesh?
Yeah.
Though it sounds like they would go together, they don't.
Darn it.
However,
I bet they're both equally as real.
mesh is real.
Okay. Yeah.
Steve Welch has contributed $2. He says, here's money for the hot chick and her Coke. Did he call me a hot
He
chick?
did, because I don't drink Coke.
Well, thank you. What are you doing later? K. Cordius Technologies contributed $5. He says, awesome build. I can't wait to see it completed. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see it started.
Let's get started.
All right. All right. So if you guys start asking questions and stuff now, I'm not really going to be able to pay much attention, but I will get, the contributions I'll acknowledge later if contributions come in while we're trying to work. And I'll go back through that history before we finish. And let's see. Luke Greenius says, Carrie just dropped $20 in your PayPal for the great community. Right on, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Here we go. Let's get started. All right.
Grab the camera.
So, yeah, let's get you started with the camera. Let's do that. So you know how to release that from the tripod, right? She's new at this, so. And she's blonde. Supposedly.
As far as we know.
All right. You see me in there?
Yep.
We're going to switch over to her camera. Are you ready? And here we go, right there. Come on over here. Come around here. Let's go. Let's.
I don't want to die today.
Let's go over here. I want to show the case. So here's the deal. Today's case. No, I really.
You just want. Okay.
I want you to be just like you're the audience. You're there, and you just have the best seat. All right.
Okay.
Now, folks over at Be Quiet asked me if I would review a case. And the case they wanted me to review, I said, I don't think I'm going to like that case. And I will review it, but I'll tell you, I probably won't have very nice things to say about it. And I would very much like to review a case that I think I would like. But here's what I'm looking for. And he said, I've got the perfect case. Forget that other one, he said, because I've seen your videos and I appreciate your honesty. And I'm going to send you the Be Quiet Dark Base 700. So underneath this is this is the first time I'm uncovering this, so I hope everything's okay. Da-da-da-da. This is the Be Quiet Dark Base 700. This case sells for $180. It has some subtle RGB in there. It's got a built-in fan controller. You can reverse the motherboard tray if you want to put the motherboard onto the other side. I don't know why you would, but you can if you want to. And it's got a USB 3.1 Type-C header on the front, which really is still rare to see on a case these days. So it's got a lot of really nice touches. As you can see, it's a big case. I think it's still considered a mid-tower, not a full-size tower. It fits on the Lazy Susan, so that's always good. And it's not as heavy as you might think it would be. There's glass on this side, tempered glass. And that's what we'll be working in today. My first time working with this case, so there may be a little bit of a learning curve with getting things installed, but I don't think it's going to be much different than any other case, really. I'll come around here. I'll come over here. And looking at our parts, we've got the Core i9 9900K that's in there, if you can see right inside.
There you go.
They spend a lot of money on that packaging. We're going to pair that with probably one of the most expensive solid-state drives and fastest solid-state drives available on the market today. This is the 970 Evo Plus, 2 terabytes, almost $500 for this. About $480 just for this thing in my hand here. With RAM, we're going with 2 sticks of 16 gig for a total of 32 gigs, and that's 3200 megahertz. It's fast stuff. Customer needs a Wi-Fi card, so we're going to be adding the ASUS 88. The AC88, and I've used this 3 or 4 times in previous videos, so nothing really new here. Motherboard is a Z390. It's the Gigabyte AORUS Pro down here. I don't know what you're looking at. Just what I'm talking about right here.
I thought you were going to pick it up.
I see. And then for our power supply, we've got a Seasonic 650 watt. 650 watt is what's recommended from NVIDIA for the GeForce RTX 2080 Ti, which is in this humongous, what's the word I'm looking for? It's huge. It's giant. Yeah, ginormous. That's what it is. But they saved a little money by taking that corner out. See that? So that's the 2080 Ti. That's about $1,100. So this is not an inexpensive build. $180 for the case, about $100 for the power supply, about $200, a little bit more than $200 on the motherboard, I think. Well, under $200, I think. About $100 for the Wi-Fi card. I think around $500 on the CPU. I can't remember what the CPU was. We've got the cooler, the Mugen 5. We'll see if that's going to work well.
So what's the total price for all of this?
We're looking around $3,000. But I'll tell you, you're getting a lot for $3 grand. I mean, 1/3 of that $3 grand is just that box right there. And like I said, that solid state drive at nearly $500 is, these two components right there are half of everything. That's $1,500. Just those two parts. And then everything else is the other $1,500. With the exception of the case, Be Quiet has sent the case for free for the review, and then I will build in it and review it as I'm building in it, and then pass that on to the customer, who will then report back to me on how the case holds up over time and whether or not they like it, and we'll follow up with the customer in the months and years ahead to see what their experience is with the Be Quiet Dark Base 700. And it looks great. Everything I've heard about it has been positive, so I'm very much looking forward to working on it. And who knows, maybe we'll be seeing a lot more Be Quiet cases here on the channel. This may be the start of something new. All right, and we're gonna let me switch over. You need to turn that off.
It's my alarm.
Here, give me the camera for a second.
Pick up Merrick.
Okay, so yes, you, pay attention. We're about to start this build. I'm going to move some of these items off of the countertop so that we can start prepping. I don't know what do I want to prep first. I think I'm going to prep the motherboard first. I want to start with the good stuff. I'm anxious. So, I can't wait to get to the motherboard, so I'm just going to start there. So for that, I'm going to need the RAM, the drive, the board, the CPU, the cooler, and we'll do the power supply later. The Wi-Fi card will be after that. Wi-Fi card will be one of the last things. And then the graphics card will also be one of the last things we put in. There we go. So we'll set all that back here. And these are the instructions that came with the case. I'll just put them up here for now. And let's see, it's been a while since I've done a build. I hope I remember how to do it. Dave says it sounds like the ice cream van has arrived. Ice cream! All right, so in the motherboard box, this is typically what it looks like if you've never built a computer before. There are different manufacturers and different models of motherboards are packaged, can be packaged differently. However, this is typical. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the board out and we'll set it down here just for a moment. And then there's this cardboard here in the box that we'll just put over there. And inside we've got SATA cables. We're not doing anything SATA on this build. There's no room for any external drives like optical or whatnot. G connector, M.2 screws and standoffs. It looks like maybe some thermal sensors, I'm guessing, I don't know. And cable for something, go faster sticker. Instructions, driver disk. Mostly driver disks aren't really needed anymore. There'll be some utilities on there. I don't typically load those, but if the customer wants to load them, they can, and they should download the latest versions from the manufacturer's website and not use that disk. We don't even have a drive anyway. Now I'm going to take the board out of its anti-static bag. The bag is made of the same material on the inside as it is on the outside. People that say you shouldn't place the motherboard on the bag because it's not being protected, they don't know what they're talking about. The bag is less conductive than the skin on your hands. So really it's all about proper handling procedures. So as long as you handle the electronics correctly, the whole argument over what is conductive and what isn't doesn't really matter anymore because you're never making contact with anything. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put the motherboard here on the box that it came in, and that'll prevent scratching the countertop. You could build on the anti-static bag if you want to. Don't let people on the internet tell you that's, well, they can tell you, don't listen to them. It's funny because people will be like, it's a good thing I didn't do that. How do you know? Did you try? So anyway, there's some plastic on the motherboard. Some motherboards have this, some don't. And we just want to get rid of that. And I just want to look and see if there's any other plastic that's, it's typically on the heat sinks if it's going to be there at all. We've got 2 locations for M.2. And I'll have to look in the manual. I will probably, which one am I going to end up using? I may just use this one because I like that the heatsink's bigger. But I need to make sure, most boards these days, especially when they're this high-end, support NVMe and SATA on both. But there are still boards that only support NVMe on one drive or the other. So I'll need to verify that before I make my final decision. So that's the board. It's ready for us to do something with. And then we have to decide what's the first thing we want to put on the motherboard. And now for me, I'm really excited to open one of these 9900Ks because I have never opened one. I bought one, geez, I think it's been 2 or 3 months ago, and I've had it sitting on my shelf waiting for a future build that's just not ready to get started yet. And so I have no idea how this opens at all. There's a sticker here, which apparently I have to cut. Okay. That's an unusual box. There's a sticker. So I guess the stickers indicate where this opens. It's the only imagine. Why else would they be there, right? I probably could have watched a video on how these come apart before I
feel like it's a very expensive Rubik's Cube.
Well, a Rubik's Cube would turn. I mean, there's tape here, so that's got to come out, right? Somehow this separates. Does it separate into halves? Is there Yeah, it's got to maybe separate into 2 halves.
Is there a fingerprint sensor?
Hold on, let's see.
Is my face going to melt off when you get it open?
I'll tell you. Did I just cut the same piece of tape twice? Is that what I did? I feel like when I lift this up, I'm going to see the back of Darth Vader's head as his helmet gets put on. It's like a scene from Empire Strikes Back. So couldn't they have just sent this part? What am I supposed to do with this?
It's an intelligence test.
Oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. Wait, you want to see that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Oh. Okay, here we go.
Go banana.
All right. I have caused 5 battle points worth of damage to the dragon. I just leveled up. My lucky dice.
Yeah, you know what? Nobody played with you then. They're not playing with you now.
My friend Gary Gygax says otherwise, if he could talk right now. We'll just put that over there with the rest of my octagonal boxes. So in this box, this is actually the CPU. None of that other stuff mattered. It was just there to make you feel like you bought something. Go faster sticker. Instructions. Box. So really, all they needed to send was this. Man up. All they needed to send was this. This is all you need. All that non-eco-friendly packaging. This is why we had the hottest July on record worldwide.
What else are the sea turtles going to play with?
Paper straws. Okay, so here on the motherboard, can you see this? You want to shoot over my shoulder? Can you reach that high? So this is where the CPU is going to go underneath here. Can you, yeah, a little more, more. Okay. I'm going to go under here, and we're going to leave this lid on. There's a lot of very delicate pins, 1,151 delicate pins underneath this, and this is protecting those pins from any damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push down on this lever. What are you?
I'm not doing it.
Oh, I think the button's sticking. Push the button really hard. The other way. There. Is it staying?
We'll see.
That's what I get for buying a refurbished camera. All right, I think the zoom button sometimes sticks. All right, so I'm gonna just push this lever down and away, and we'll lift that up, and it will expose all of those delicate pins I was just discussing. If it focuses, there it is. And you wanna keep your fingers and any sort of, like if you had long sleeves, they could snag on those little pins. A thread could snag, and game over. That would not be a warranty issue because the manufacturer would say that's not a defect in workmanship or materials, so it's up to you to buy another motherboard. That being said, the chip is going to go in with the writing facing the same direction as the writing on the board. All these socket 1151s go in the same way. There are notches on the chip. There's a little golden triangle right down here. If you look right there, there's a little, sorry, it's a white triangle in this case, right there. And you'll also see on the CPU itself, there's a triangle.
Where is it? There it is.
Right there. So those two triangles, this triangle here and that triangle there, you're gonna be on the same side And that's how you know the CPU is oriented correctly. Also, the CPU will not fully seat any other way but the right way. So as I mentioned, for me, the easiest way to tell is looking at the writing on the chip. And the writing on the chip is going to face the same direction as all the writing on the board. If you look at the board, you'll see the writing, this writing here. There, stand over there, because you're having a hard time.
I am.
See this right? No, I need you in front of the board, straight on. So right here, you see these words like gigabyte, right? And then slowly pull the camera back and up. And then that writing is going to match that same direction. There's also a notch here, and the triangle here and here, as I mentioned. So 3 different ways to know you're putting that in correctly. What I do is I just gently find the corners at the bottom and then just lower it gently into the socket. And I can grab the edges of it. I want to avoid touching the top of it because there's oils on your skin and we don't want to contaminate that, because that's where the thermal compound is going to go to help pull the heat off of that. And it does get hot very quickly. If you touch it, you just have to get some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip and clean it. It's not the end of the world. But if you avoid touching it and handle the parts in the same way that you see me handling the parts in this video, you won't have to deal with that. So once again, looking back down here on the board, we're going to take the lid now and lower it back down. And it's got like a little fork right here. It's going to go underneath that screw. And I'm going to push down this lever. I'm going to push down this lever, which now has a lot more resistance on it now that we've got a chip in there. And then this plastic lid is going to pop up all by itself. So I'm going to brace the motherboard with one hand, and I'll push down, lock it in place. And we're going to put this little plastic cover away. If we have to send the motherboard in for any warranty repair during the next 3 years when it's under warranty, you don't want to send the board back with the CPU installed. And if you send the board back without covering those pins for protection, your warranty will be denied, because it is not likely the board will arrive without pin damage if you ship it empty. It has to have something protecting it. And if you ship it with your CPU in it, you might not get your CPU back. Manufacturers are very clear in RMA procedures on what you are to send or not send, with that warning that if you don't follow their instructions, you may not get back what you sent, which is why they told you not to send it. All right. So that's the CPU installed. That's a 9900K installed in the board properly. That's what that looks like when it's done correctly. It's not difficult, right? Super easy. Super easy. Let's see what we've got here as far as contributions that have come in. We've got 1,029 people watching. Welcome in, everybody. Wire Sowelus contributed $5. Says, I love your videos. I always learn something every time I view them. Also, just call me Joe. All right, Joe, thank you. Ben Fitzpatrick's contributed $1.99. Good evening, Carrie. Impressive build. Rock on, bro. Steve Welch contributed $2. Oh, we already did that one. All right, so thanks, you guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. Appreciate that very much. And let me just look through the comments real quick. Let's see if I missed any questions. Does the i9 have onboard graphics? I believe it does, doesn't it? Pretty sure. I threw the paper.
Do you want to switch cameras for a moment?
Yeah, let me switch over to camera 1. There we go. Where are you going?
This way.
All right. I can switch that to a different camera if that zoom is really becoming an issue.
It's an issue.
Okay. In fact, one of the other cameras I've got is quite a bit lighter than that one, which might help you too. But this doesn't have the shoe on it for the tripod. Let's try this.
Dead arm.
Give me a second, guys. We do a little crew work here. Ooh, it's dusty. Hasn't been used in a while. Okay, that looks all right. And then let me feed it into this here. Let's see. Let me see if that's working. Here, take that for a second, would you? Thank you. Yeah, let's go over to camera 2. Let me switch over to that camera. Yeah, that seems like it works. It's
good.
Yeah, with the cable in the way, it does kind of interfere with your ability to hold it. I see what you're saying. That's all right. I think that's going to work okay.
I also just need to find the zoom in and out feature.
It's going to be where your first and second finger are. Almost on every camera ever made.
Almost.
It's there, right? Or no? Where is it?
Looking.
Oh, it's right here. It's on the top. Slides. No, back towards you. All the way back. Yep. Did you figure it out?
Yes.
Good. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Just a little technical stuff here. And I can put this camera away. Tell you what, let's put this shoe on that camera. Where's the front? This is the front. So sometimes when you see a video supposed to start and it's not starting on time, there's a lot of this going on. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of getting the cable set up and getting everything configured, making sure that it works, getting all the boxes out, clearing off the tabletop. I'm gonna go ahead and just set this here for right now. We'll give you a little break.
All right.
And let me turn that off just for right now. We'll save the batteries. And we're gonna work on the main camera here for a second. Okay. Have you tried wireless cameras? Not aware of any that exist. All the parts for this build are listed in the video notes below the video, and links to all the parts as well as the screwdrivers and tools and Lazy Susan, all that is listed in the video notes below the video, as it always is. And it doesn't look like I missed anything.
Carrie's been burned twice by his sister now. Those aren't even burns. Those are just little pokes.
Rich says you have to be smarter than the package.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was not a condition upon purchase.
Right.
Just saying.
Nothing that you agreed to.
That's right. All right, I think I'm caught up here. And Madi's contributed $10.
Thank you again, Madi.
I think Madi's just like, let's go back to it. All you did is put a CPU in all this time. All right. Now, at this point, I can choose to install the RAM. I can put the cooler on. I could put the M.2 in. I think I want to go ahead and put in the M.2 drive. And then the question is, can we put it in here or here? What's the advantage or disadvantage? Ideally, this is not the best location for an M.2 drive because you're right between the graphics card, which generates a lot of heat, and the CPU that generates a lot of heat. If we move it away from the heat and we go a little further down, it may run a little cooler. When an M.2 drive gets hot, or any solid state drive, it does impair its performance a bit. However, it has to really be used hard for it to get hot. It's not enough for it to be in And its location is secondary, right? The primary concern is how hard it's being pushed. It doesn't hurt the drive, but it can impact the performance of the drive until it cools back down. So by moving the drive away from the main two heat sources, this location would actually be a bit more ideal. But this is a larger heatsink. Also, this one will be easier to get to. If the customer wants to add another drive in the future, and I use this one, they basically have to take their video card out in order to get here, which is just a bit of a pain in the butt versus taking out one screw and installing an M2. So for that reason, because it has the larger heatsink, and because it'll make it easier for the customer in the future, I think I want to go up here. But I am curious if they both support SATA and NVMe or one or the other. So to do that, I'm going to pick up the board. Do me a favor, pull the manual out. Let's just take a quick look at the manual and see what those specifications say.
Is this this might be a YouTube channel first?
No, I've pulled the manual out before when I'm working with unfamiliar hardware. Sometimes on hardware it'll say right on the board, depending on what we're talking about. But in general, I find the instructions leave more questions than they give answers. That's been my experience. So I tend to be more experimental. So here it does show the two drives, the two M.2 slots, I mean to say. And it says the M.2 connections, they do support RAID, which is pointless because you're going to saturate the bus with that M2 drive we've got. It can't go it'll only slow it down going in RAID. Mm-hmm. Until PCIe 4 or 5 comes out. And I know PCIe 4 is out with the 570 chip, whatever. Still talking about RAID. Please note that an SSD cannot be used to create a RAID set with either. Okay, don't care.
Is there any way to know as a user that your M.2 drive is getting too hot or overheating?
Most users would never know. It slows its performance down. Your read speeds or your write speeds will start to slow down, but they're already so much faster than a mechanical hard drive. Even when they're slowed down, they're many times faster.
You probably wouldn't even notice.
Most people wouldn't notice.
Do you think it would shorten the lifespan?
If it shortens the lifespan from, let's say, 70 years down to 50, I still think it's 40 more years than you're ever going to use it. It's funny to me because if I buy a bag of Doritos and it's got an expiration date on it, that's funny to me. Because that bag of Doritos is going to be gone long before
the date.
Like, even if the date was tomorrow, I'm not worried. They'll be gone.
I just found a Neosporin that expired in 2009 at my house. So.
Well, it doesn't. So expired food won't hurt you, and expired medicine won't hurt you. It's not as effective. Right. It might work. It just may not be as effective. And the same way they like to ship a lot of medications in the mail. And the mail trucks, they're not air conditioned.
Right.
And my mailbox is a metal box. So if they deliver medication in 115 degree Fahrenheit weather in an unair conditioned truck and put it in a mailbox that sits around 200 degrees during the day, and then you come home from work at 6 o'clock at night and get it out of your mailbox, chances are that medicine has been severely yes. Yeah. And I think it should be illegal, and Congress should make it illegal. But be that as it may, it won't be harmful.
Right.
Except if you need
chocolates.
It.
You could still eat it. It won't hurt you.
Just because I have chocolates from several years ago, you can let that go. It may not taste fresh.
Just because you give out Christmas candy at Halloween.
Hey, I'm very thrifty. Let's see. So here's our chart. And it says that M2A, that's the top one, versus M2M. You thought it was going to be M2B, didn't you? No, M2A,
and M2M.
M2M.
Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, right. And it says M2A supports PCIe, which is NVMe, with no interference from any of the SATA ports. M2M supports PCIe. They both support PCIe or SATA versions of M.2 drives. But if you use a PCIe If we put it in here, if we put anything in this slot, ports 5 and 6 over here are disabled because it's sharing them. It's one or the other. You can use these two or this one. But the other 4, they're not affected. Just these last 2 are affected. And that's typical. It's a limitation of the chipset. It is an engineering specification that is a limitation of how much data this board can handle, how many lanes of data can be moving around at the same time. That's all affected by the chipset. So the good news is by going into the top slot, there are no interferences. Using the lower slot, the M2M slot, you will sacrifice the last 2 SATA ports. You won't be able to use those last 2. Whether you're using SATA or PCIe, also called NVMe, or SATA or PCIe, the results are the same as far as interference or channel sharing, as it were, bandwidth sharing.
Shall I get the camera, or are you getting back to it?
So are we clear on that? Try drinking expired milk. Oh wait, that's buttermilk. Try eating expired bread. Oh wait, that's croutons.
Expired milk could also be yogurt, right? Or what is it called?
Cheese?
Kefir. Cheese. Sour cream.
Does it matter where you plug in cables on a power supply as long as it fits? As long as it fits, you're in the right place. The best way, of course, is what's going to look the best. What's the most efficient cable routing, and what's going to be the easiest to clean those cables up, to tie them up. But yes, if they plug in, they're in the right place. All right, and Craig Lee says, how come you haven't started using the YouTube subscription option? I joined that for $4.99 a month. We're looking into it. I really think education should be free for everybody. There is a little bit of a deterrent with regards to the trolls and the people that think they're being clever when they're just doing the laziest thing, stating the obvious. And it's a little discouraging sometimes. And I know that the subscription model will get rid of that, and you need to look into that for me to see what we can do about it. But I also hate the idea of restricting knowledge. But the way I was thinking was do a subscription model for the live feeds.
Yeah, and then put the live feeds on
for everybody like a week later or a couple days later, so that those people are no longer able to interfere in the chat and disturb the live feed. And then all the comments are moderated and can be approved or denied before they're released to the public, which is how the comments are set up now. Yeah, you need to look into that, because that may be more profitable, may be able to grow and expand.
It's going to be more work for me.
But you could make more money if there's more money to be made.
True.
And maybe I can get into an actual studio, and that would save me a lot of trouble with all the setup and teardown I'm constantly having to do. And then, like I said, the videos could then later, after they're aired live, go on to be free for others who don't have that ability to distract me with nonsense during a live feed. Of course, I can just choose not to acknowledge it, but I'm working on that. Carrie, you will lose many if you do that on the live feed. True, but if everybody on the live feed is paying $0 and one person watches the live feed at $5, I just made $5 more than I made giving it away for free. You understand that, right? You understand that if 10 people paid, if 100 people, we've got 1,000 people watching, if 100 people paid $5, that's $500. And that's about 450 more than I've made so far in contributions today. Not that I'm complaining, but I'm just saying to sustain the channel, it requires an influx of money. And that means getting sponsorships or charging for subscriptions. It also means that if anybody can come in for free, they've got nothing to lose to come in and harass and try and make it all about them and take over and try and get attention. And it puts an end to all that. It doesn't have to be expensive. It should be very affordable for everybody, and And those who
And the
don't,
videos would still be up here.
Yeah,
would
they'd
just
still
be
get them.
edited. They just wouldn't be live. That's all.
maybe not even edited, maybe just held back a couple days until, because
Well,
somebody
they
who
could be
pays,
edited.
deserves to get something, right? They deserve to get it earlier. They deserve special because they're paying.
I assume all the people saying get on with the build and don't have the conversation, they're not really interested in live videos anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah. That's a good point. Paul from Mars has contributed $10. He says, welcome back. Always fun to see you two working together. Thank you, Paul.
Thank
And
you, Paul.
Soren Rasmussen has contributed 20 Danish kroner. Hello from Denmark. Welcome in. Can you get a Danish in Denmark?
I bet you can.
What do you think they call them? Are they Danishes?
They're us's.
Us's. Can I get an us?
Can I get an us, please? Just like they're just fries in France.
Pommes frites. And that's Belgium, right? That's where they were invented, not France. There should be Belgium fries.
Right, but they're called French fries. But in France, you just say frites.
But we don't call them French waffles. Can you get a Belgian waffle in Belgium, or is it just a waffle?
It's just a waffle.
It's all very confusing for me.
You should see what a pancake and bacon looks like in England.
Why?
Their bacon is different.
Oh, they have like back bacon. Okay. Bob and Doug McKenzie. Before your time? Never mind.
I don't know.
So, Dave Murray is Scottish, and even he knows it's a Danish pastry. Not a pasty. Pasty? Pasty.
Pasty.
Pasty is something else.
From Cornwall is where the
Cornish. Is it made with Cornish hens and Cornish meal?
I don't think so.
It's cornmeal.
All the ones I had were just cheese and onion, so.
Danish in Denmark is called Wienerbread. So we think it's from Austria.
It's not an us.
Aren't we still boycotting French fries? Okay.
I am, but that's just because of my diet.
Let the manufacturers pay, not the viewers. So that's certainly an option here, but letting the manufacturers pay, then you might wonder if my opinion is genuine or my opinion is paid for. If I upset a manufacturer with a review that's not flattering for them, what incentive would they have to continue asking me to review anything else again? They're not paying money so they can look bad. They're paying money for a good review. And if you're afraid of losing that money, so you don't, you're not honest and you give a review that keeps the manufacturer happy so you can keep the money coming in, then what value does the video actually have to a viewer who wants real, sincere, honest information? How can you know for certain that the information you're getting is not being biased by the person presenting it in order to keep the money flowing in? Because if you're not paying any money, why do I care if I'm being honest with you? That tends to be the American way, is to just take and step on somebody else's back to get ahead. And it's grab, all you can, all for me, get your own, doom, 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 doom. Listen to the lyrics of Money by Pink Floyd. It's a mentality I do not subscribe to. And it really bothers me when I see channels that have these established relationships that seemingly come from out of nowhere with companies and have nothing harsh to say about the product.
Yeah.
Right?
Then you don't know what to believe.
Well, then I just don't believe it at all. I'm like,
Right.
well, he's just cashing a check. He or she is just cashing a check. And then I wonder, what service is this for the viewer? I see what the service is for the manufacturer, and I see what they get.
Right.
So if that's what you're looking for, you're going to get exactly what you pay for. So if you want manufacturers to pay for everything, then you perhaps like being brainwashed and lied to. But I'm still trying to crack that nut. I haven't quite figured out the best balance to both bringing money in while still being able to maintain my integrity. So at this point, it becomes either viewer sponsored, or the videos just very rarely get made because they cost so much money to make, or I sell out and I just start grabbing checks from manufacturers and telling you guys how wonderful everybody who writes me a check is. Gosh, I really don't like that last option. I mean, I could probably buy a much nicer house, a new car. I mean, I've seen some of these YouTube enthusiasts and they got some nice cars.
Yeah.
Some of these guys have studios 4 or 5 times bigger than my house. But the way they got them, I'm not comfortable going down that road. I'm really not. Fine for them. They're not me and I'm not them. That's not the way I want to do it. But there's plenty of them around. So if that's what you like, you could go check out their channels. Pretty much nearly every other tech channel. If it's got over 1 million subscribers, I would question if they're taking sponsorships from manufacturers and they've got over 1 million subscribers. I'm not quite sure the information you're getting isn't even subconsciously. You know, they may not be doing it with intent, but why would you bite the hand that feeds you?
I think if we were going to look for sponsors, we would look for more like people like BarkBox or people like Coke or...
I would do Acronis, I would do A-Day. I would use any of the products you regularly see me use on my channel. This is the first time with a Be Quiet case, so we've yet to determine if I would recommend this or not. We're going to find out here soon enough. But these are sort of the things that concern me as a real tech versus an entertainer. And it's important to me that I treat all of my viewers like I would if you were a paying customer, giving you the same advice, the same recommendations, and not having those decisions changing based on who's paying me or how much they're paying me. And it'd be hard-pressed to find the information that's being provided from the larger business tech channels, you know, the people that are making a big money out of it, to know what the sincerity is.
Yeah.
Not that they intend, not that they're intending harm, but it's just human nature. You know, you want to keep the checks coming in. So be nice to the people writing the checks. If you're not nice to them,
the checks won't come in anymore.
And if the checks don't come in, you don't have a YouTube channel. And the viewers, they got what they paid for. You got a free channel. Free channel was giving you fake information, maybe, possibly. You don't know what the motivation is behind the information. Then the person decides, okay, I'm going to be honest. They upset the people writing the checks. They don't have the money coming in. They can't afford to make the video, and the channel goes bye-bye. It's a delicate walk. Try it sometime. Jeremy Kramer's contributed 20 bucks. He says, hey, Kerry, happy Friday. Here's a few cases of Coke, courtesy of my job at Mariano's here. In your option on any build, in your opinion, on any build, would you use a full tower case instead of a mid-tower case? It just depends what the customer wants. That's all. In some cases, customer may need a full tower if they have a big server or something like that. Although most servers go in like a 1U, 2U, 3U case.
Yeah.
There's server rack mounted type stuff. But for the most part, mid towers are the most common size of case being sold.
When I build servers, I build for remote locations, so they don't go in a rack, and I use a mid-tower case.
They don't go in Iraq?
They don't go in a rack.
A rack.
I'm sure they work fine in Iraq.
Jesse Kirks contributed $5. Thank you, Kerry and Linda, for all you do. I always enjoy hanging out with you both. Love the honesty and integrity. Keep up the great content.
That's your integrity.
My integrity.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, Jesse. Spry Webb has contributed $5. Just got my Lazy Susan. Great for builds and Thanksgiving dinner. Right on. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Well, Kerry uses Windows, so I don't think he would have issues with being sponsored by Microsoft. True. Companies like Microsoft aren't just handing out sponsorships, though. But yeah, I would take it.
You can get rich by writing a bunch of checks.
Bill Gates talking to
Homer.
That was Homer Simpson. I'm gonna buy you out for $1. Take them.
Buy them out, boys. Sponsors like Lumber Liquidators would be great.
Right? I wish.
Too bad it wasn't before.
I just want to say I was at Lumber Liquidators. Didn't see any lumber there.
No? Did you see any liquidations?
I got a good deal.
Surprisingly expensive.
And no liquid. Like there wasn't a bottled water or anything like that. All right. You know you're going to be editing all this later.
All of it. So let's get back to work. Less work for me later.
All right. So where I was looking into the manual to see which of the two M.2 slots I should use. I was leaning towards using this top one because of the larger heatsink, and for availability of upgrade for the client in the future is easier to access the lower one. Again, accessing the lower one will disable slots 5 and 6 on the SATA ports, but very few people are going to use more than one SATA port these days anyway, and certainly not likely to use 3 or 4. Some do, but it's pretty rare. And 5 or 6, using filling up all 6 of those while having an M.2 drive at the same time, it's pretty much unheard of now with drives being as large as they are in capacity. So just be aware of that. Ted Trish has contributed $20. He says, just because you help so many. Well, thank you, Ted. And Zerloth has contributed $5. He said, the only sponsor you need is FedEx and get cheaper shipping, right? For sure. Okay, let's see if we can get back over to your camera. You ready?
Yes.
All right. All right, so come around here. And let me get this manual out of the way. I'll just put it back here for now. And get my screwdriver. Let's see. Uh-oh. Took some tools out of here the other day and put them in my office.
Have you ever showed the people your drawer you're always in and out of?
You don't need to see that. Focus in on this. And I'm going to go back to my office and grab a screwdriver. Okay.
Is camera 1 supposed to have the eyeball without the line? Is camera 1 supposed to have the eyeball without the line through it?
There's no line through the... What are you talking about? It's either on or it's off.
Okay.
If it's lit up, it's on.
They just, camera 1 and camera 2 look exactly the same to me, that's all.
Well, one says 2 and one says 1, and that's how you tell them apart.
I know, but the icons next to it, there's nothing other than, I guess, just because 2 is on top of 1. Is that what you were saying earlier? The one that's on top is the active one? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, you get used to it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to remove this top heatsink here. What she's asking about is the OBS software that I use for broadcasting and the symbols that it uses. There is some tape on the bottom of this that we're going to take off. Again, we don't want to get oils from your skin on what the tape is protecting. That's why the tape is there, to keep dust and debris off. We've already, well, this standoff here, this is for the heatsink. We need to put a standoff in the 2280 position. So the M.2 drive is 22 millimeters wide, and then they make them in 40 millimeter, 60 and 42 or something like that, 60 and 80. And if you look closely on the board, it should actually say those numbers right down. Should see an 80 right at the edge of my fingertip. See that? 80. And this one says 60 right here. Might need the back camera just a little bit. There you go. And then this one should be a 42, I think, is what that one would be. So back inside the box, there were those little plastic, oh, more plastic. I'm gonna take all that plastic off because it gets hot and then it'll emit an odor. So I'm just gonna put this up here for a moment. Let's go back in the box and grab the bag that has the M2. Perfect. That's what I want right there. We'll have 2 of those in the box, 1 for each slot. So I'm going to put on my old man glasses so I can see, because this is tiny work. And I need a pair of scissors and cut this open. So we're going to open this. Oh, it doesn't look like, I thought there was, sometimes they put the screw in here. This time they didn't. So that means there'll be another bag in the box that's gonna have the screw in it. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this down in the position that says 80. That's 80 millimeters from there to there. And we can even use a screwdriver to tighten it down just a bit. Doesn't have to be super tight. And then back in the box one more time to look for the little tiny screw. I can't believe they waste the packaging to do that. Yep, there it is right there. I should have 2 more in here. There's another standoff right there, and there should be 1 more bag with a screw. Yep. So these 2 are for the other slot we're not using. They go back in the box. All the spare parts go back in the box, back to the customer. So the customer has that in the future for upgrades. Maybe they don't add an M.2 drive into that second slot for 3 years. We want to make that option available to them, and they need to have that standoff and screw in order to make that happen. They're very difficult to find online. It can vary in size from one manufacturer to another. Installing the M.2 is quite simple. Let me put these scissors over here, and we'll grab the box for the M2, which is right here. Again, this is the 970 Evo Plus. Very expensive, very fast drive. Zerloff has contributed 10 bucks. He says, I know it's rare to use more than 2 SATA ports, but do you ever come across having to use a different SATA port because the M.2 slot disables certain SATA ports? The M.2 slot only disables the last SATA ports. So if anybody's using those last SATA ports, they're plugged in the wrong ports. You should use ports 0, 1, 2, and 3 as you need them in that order. If you have 1 drive, plug it in port 0. If you have 2 drives, plug it in port 0 and port 1. If you have 3 drives, plug it in. Do I have to keep going, or do you think they got it? So when you get to 5 and 6, you shouldn't even be there. If you are using 5 and 6, then you're going to have to make some decisions on what's more important to you. Remember, you can have anything you want in this life. You just can't have everything you want. So we're going to cut the tape. It was brand new. You see all the products here are brand new. Products are provided and purchased by the customers. I do not sell parts. All I'm doing is building and configuring the machines for the customer. That's what customers pay me for. So there's no incentive or motivation for me to select any manufacturers or parts other than meeting my customers' needs, which includes how they're going to use the computer, what their budget is, how quickly they want it, how much they're willing to spend, how much risk they're willing to take. If a customer's got a lot of money and they like risk, I would recommend the latest and greatest. I tend to avoid whatever the latest and greatest is because the customer is effectively a guinea pig. And most customers don't want to be. They go, Kerry, this is what I want to do. How can we do that within this amount of money, have it done within the next couple weeks, and not have any problems? Based on that, I offer recommendations. Customers then can evaluate my recommendations, provide me with any concerns or questions they have. Once we get past that step, then it goes on to ordering. Customer can order wherever they want to order from. And then I get the parts and I put it together and make the video and it gets shipped off to the customer wherever they are. And that's the whole process. So how much a system costs depends on when you buy it, where you buy it. What the cost is today, be a different cost next week. If you're watching this video in 2024, what we paid for this system is not going to be relevant to you 4 or 5 years from now. It's irrelevant. In fact, it won't even be relevant to you 6 months from now. It'll just constantly be changing, even next month. So when people go, how much was it? Well, we don't know when you asked, but you can look and see the date the video was made, and you can do that with all videos to get an idea of what the costs were at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in. It's going to go in with the label facing up. You'll see one side doesn't have any chips on it at all. There's a cut right in here, and there is a groove right in there. And we're going to slide that in the groove until that little gold end disappears. And you'll see now it's kind of bouncy, springy. And now I can take that little tiny screw out of the bag and we can secure the drive down. This does not have to be super tight. All it's doing is holding the drive, securing the drive rather, so it doesn't move or come out. Then we take the heatsink cover right here, the heat spreader, heat sink, whatever you want to call it. We're going to peel the tape off. I've seen systems where they don't peel the tape off. System will still work, just won't be cooling as effectively. Then there's a little tab on one end of the heatsink. Notice how I'm holding it so I don't touch the back that I just took the protective tape off. This tab, this slot, is going to go right in here. Be careful where you slide it. Don't slide it down into your drive. It goes above that. And then it just gently sits down on top of the drive. And then we're going to take the screw that came out of there and put it right back where we got it from to secure the heatsink on top of the M.2 drive. You'll see building a computer is incredibly simple. Every year it seems like it gets a little easier. The new DDR5 RAM coming out will have its own voltage controllers on it. And that means motherboard manufacturers won't have to have the voltage controllers on the board anymore. And that means potentially smaller boards, fewer quality control problems. It's one less thing on your motherboard to go wrong. It just keeps getting easier and easier. In fact, this motherboard, if you come around here and go the other way, even has the I/O shield already installed for us. So we didn't have to prep the case with the I/O shield because it's already part of the motherboard. And I'd love to see that become a standard. Typically now you only find it on high-end or mid-range boards, but that right there is brilliant because you don't have to worry about anything lining up properly. Now in this box that the M.2 drive came in, you may not realize it, but it opens. This is something Samsung does. And then that's where you'll find your documentation, which you can set right over there. And we'll put this with that. All right. So that's the CPU in the M.2 drive. It's very painless, very simple. If you follow the procedures as I've demonstrated them, there's really no worries or concerns. Hold the parts the way I show you. You don't have to worry about electrostatic discharge. You don't have to worry about an electrostatic strap. Electrostatic straps, they're pretty cheap. You can pick them up for $5, $6 if you want to wear one because it makes you feel better. Don't let me stop you. If you follow the procedures in the exact way that I detail them in my video, it's a waste of money. But you know, if it makes you feel good, what's that worth? So don't let me discourage you from using one if you want to. And if you don't want to, just hold the parts the way I show you, which you should be doing regardless. Everything's probably going to be just fine. What do I want to do next? So we got the CPU, we've got the RAM. I guess we can put the Mugen on here.
We didn't do the RAM yet.
I mean the SSD and the CPU. The reason I don't want to put the RAM in yet is it might get in the way of putting the heatsink on because the heatsink's going to go here and I don't want to bump into the RAM. RAM is a delicate, of all the electronics we're working with, the CPU is delicate and the RAM is delicate. So how it's handled and everything is pretty critical. When the SSD is installed, you know, it's already being protected here, so we don't have to worry about knocking it or anything like we do with the RAM, because the RAM just kind of sticks up. It doesn't have any protection the way that the SSD does or the CPU does. So let's get the Mugen 5. This is one of my favorite coolers. I think it's just a really good value. I think it works really well. And you can save a lot of money by moving away from those large companies that charge you twice as much for a cooler that works equally in almost every way, but is more difficult to install. This cooler costs about half the price because it's a smaller name. They're not paying all that marketing money to inflate the value to the consumer to increase their profit margins. I feel this is more honest. I feel like for $47, $48, you really get your money's worth in this. And it's super easy to install. Of all the third-party coolers I've ever installed, this one's the easiest. So I take Scythe. If they want to sponsor me, I'll take them all day because I love their products. You know, they're not getting rich off a $48 cooler.
I know, and they're giving you a full-size screwdriver.
Yeah, which is right inside this box right here. Yeah, you don't get a cheap little Allen wrench that comes included with coolers that cost twice the money, that don't cool any more effectively, by the way. It's magnetized, and it's a real screwdriver that you can use for other projects around the house. We get a tube of thermal compound, not a little plastic baggie you have to cut open. You get a tube, although the tube is mostly empty. There's plenty in there for at least 2 or 3 applications. We've got our instructions, and we've got the back plate. And that's all included in that box, which will go over there. cooling fan. Let's just set that over there. And then inside the box right here is the cooler, the heatsink itself. Again, tape on the bottom to protect it, keep it free from any contamination. We're going to need to remove that when we're ready to install. We can set it over here, just get it out of the way for right now.
While you can.
And all that can go over there. And that can go with it. Now, of all these parts, if you come around here, you see these curved brackets? These are for AMD CPUs. We're not using an AMD CPU. We're not using these brackets. We need the straight brackets. So there's 2 of them. We need those. There are 4 fan hangers, so you can have 2 fans. We're only going to use 1. It comes with 1, but you can add an additional one if you want to. So these 2 of these 4 wire hangers that I call them, they're going to go with those 2 other brackets that we do not use. Then we have 2 bags left. And there's nothing in this bag we need. This contains a little pads for preventing vibration from an extra fan, if you're going to add another fan. And then there's some standoffs and screws used for AMD, which we're not using. They go in that pile. That leaves us 1 bag left. And in this bag, there are a number of standoffs and screws. And we want the tall standoffs. Notice how there's a tall standoff and there's a short one. So the tall one is for socket 11, 51, 50, whatever. The short ones are for like the X299 motherboards, X99 motherboards, which we're not using. So I'm just going to take those small ones and they're going to go back in, the small ones go back in this bag because we're not building an X299 or X99 system. And we're not building an AMD system. This cooler will work on just about every CPU out there currently sold, with a few exceptions. Like it's not ideal for Threadripper. I don't think it'll fit on Threadripper in any case. But pretty much any CPU you can buy from Intel or AMD, Mugen's got you covered with the mounting technique. So it's a pretty safe bet. It's going to work fine. So ultimately, out of all the parts, this is what we've got. We've got the back plate, the standoffs, the screws for the brackets, and the wire hangers for the fan. I don't need the wire hangers just yet, so I'll keep them over here with the fan. And the first thing I have to put on is the back plate. And this is where it's going to be great to have you holding the camera so we can see what's going on. So let me trade places with you. You come over to this side.
Don't die. Although if you did die doing it live.
Think of the views I'd get.
Right?
It's going to go viral. Can only do it once though. And then 3 days later, everybody will move on to the cat that says, I love you or something.
Yeah.
So on the back of the board, if we look back here again, notice how I'm holding the board. Notice I'm not touching anything metal. On the back of the board, you see the socket, how it's got 2 screws here and 1 screw there. You notice that? Mm-hmm. 2, 1. You notice on this back plate, it's got 2 screws. It's 2 holes rather. So guess how we're going to align that? There's some foam pads, and that's so that we don't have metal hitting metal on the back of this motherboard tray. You don't want to have metal touching metal ever. So these foam pads on this back plate determine if if we put the back plate on this way, it would be metal touching metal on the back of the board. This way there's foam pads. We want the foam pads touching the board, and the 2 holes lining up with the 2 screws right there, like so. Now I'm going to grab one of these standoffs down here, these standoffs. I'm going to grab one of these, and I'm going to come around to the front of the motherboard. And this is a little tricky because I've got to, doing this by yourself, it's a little tricky. I'm going to go in through the top. You notice there's 4 holes around the CPU. And I need to put a standoff in each one. Obviously, I can only start with 1, so I'm going to go through here. And then I'm going to look at the back of the board once more, and I'm going to align it so that on this socket, the screw is going to come out through the middle. See how there's 3 holes in each corner? I need that middle one in each corner. So we'll start with 1, We'll just get it started. Couple of turns there. See how it's coming through? Right?
I can see it.
And now I'm going to go to this corner and do the same thing with another standoff. Just come right back around here. Go in there. Come back around. Adjust this accordingly. Notice I'm always going into the center hole. See, they don't align. This is the opposite. It's symmetrical. Understand? It's still the middle, just like we're going to use that one in the middle, and we're going to use that one in the middle. But now that I've got those two started, I don't have to worry about that back plate moving on me. So now I can just put these straight in and tighten them down. It's super easy. Take the included screwdriver and just tighten them down. Tighten opposite corners so that you have no warpage happening. And then go back around even when you think they're tight, because sometimes when you tighten up the opposite side, the other screws around it loosen. Don't crush the motherboard. You want these tight, but not so tight that you hear, yeah, if you hear that,
That's bad news.
You've over-tightened. But at the same time, you don't want them too loose. So I just kind of go around a few times until something just feels like they just don't want to, until it just feels right. That feels pretty good to me. Now I'm going to take these brackets, and it's important these brackets go on correctly. I mean, the bracket could go on this way, the bracket could go on this way, the bracket could go on that way, but it's only going to fit right one way. And what we're going to do is put the brackets so they align with this lever that we were using. I'm going to put one right there. And these screws, these are the other screws down here that I took out of the bag. That's when we use these. So I'm going to grab two of them now. Again, we're going to use the included screwdriver. And we're going to come here and just start one of the screws here and one of these screws. See, if it's not lined up right, you're not going to get the hole to line up. So this is not positioned correctly. I want to sort of be, I think, in the middle or the end. I can't remember. I think it's the end, right, like that. That little adjustment makes all the difference in the world on how easy this is to install or how difficult it could be. Now everything lines up. And these screws just come to a dead stop. You don't have to worry about over tightening. They just come to a complete dead stop. Notice the way I put the bracket on. Notice the way this juts out and that this edge is smooth and what direction it's facing. And we're going to put the other bracket on exactly the same way. Again, symmetry. It's going to go on so they face each other, and then take those final two screws. We'll put one on there. And we'll put one on there. Again, super easy. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now we're ready to put the big heatsink on top. Now this heatsink could go on potentially one of two ways. It could go on this way, but that would be wrong because you see how the CPU, come around this side. Take a look at it from this angle. You see how this could interfere with the RAM right here? See that? It's not going to fit right. But if I turn it around the other way, now look how much room we have for the RAM. And our fan's going to go right there. It's going to blow air this direction out towards the back of the case. So that's how we're going to orient it. But we're not ready to install it yet because now is when we get to put the thermal compound on. So go ahead and stand back over here if you would. And I am going to grab the thermal compound. I'm not the thermal compound because that's right here. But I'm going to grab a rubber glove and show you how I apply that. All right. It's about to get real.
All right, Dexter.
Thermal compound right here in this tube. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about the right way to install it. Honestly, how you apply your thermal compound in reality makes very little difference as to its efficacy. The important thing is that you have 100% CPU coverage across the internal heat spreader. You don't want to put on too little or it's not going to work very well. You don't want to put on too much or it's going to make a mess and it's not going to work very well. So how do you know how much to put on, especially if you can't see it? If you're dabbing it and then putting the, squishing it down, how do you know? Well, I don't know. So I do it this way instead. I'll put down how much I think I'm going to need to cover the whole CPU as though it were paint. And you see I've used very little of what's in this tube. And I'm going to cap it back because it's messy and you don't want that stuff getting out and gets all over the place. And using a clean nitrile, not a rubber glove, but a nitrile glove, I'm going to finger paint the compound across the entire surface of the CPU. Now there are some people who think, oh, you're going to have air bubbles. Well, it's not an airtight system, and if I just dab, or rather not dab, but if I just tap across the entire surface, then I create these little mountains and valleys that when squished down will resolve any concerns of air bubbles. But they don't tell you that on those videos, do they? So that means they don't know, or it means they're just seeing how gullible you are. But regardless of whatever their motivation is, I actually do this for a living, and if I do it wrong, systems come back for repairs, and then I lose money, and then I go out of business. So keep that in mind when I'm giving you advice on how I do things. It's coming from somebody that has to run a business. It's not just affecting me or my friends. So that being said, that is now ready, and now I can take this glove off. And that keeps my fingers clean, because that thermal compound can be hard to get off your hands and kind of messy. Now here on the heatsink, we're going to take this little plastic piece off. I've seen people forget to do this. The system will still run, it just won't cool very well. And I still managed to get thermal compound on me. How did I do that? How did I do that? That's going to get, that little bit will get all over everything. So I got to get it off. Get it off. All right, sorry. All right, so here we go. We're going to take this tape off, peel that off, rotate this in the proper direction, right? We said it's going to go on this way, and we're just going to set it gently down on top of the CPU. And we can start by turning this screw here into that bracket, just a couple of turns. And then we're going to go through this hole. We're going to use this long screwdriver to go in through this hole to hit the screw on the other side and give it a few turns. Now we want to try and tighten them equally. So we'll bring this down a little bit more, come around. Did I get it started? It's sometimes hard to tell. I feel like it's not quite lined up there yet. Sometimes you got to push down on it at the same time. There's a spring there. So we're going to give it a few more turns. There, it's going in. Now we'll come around to the other side, give that a few more turns. Come around to the other side, give that a few more turns. Other side. We want to just make sure we tighten both sides equally. If you tighten one side before the other, you may end up with it locking down on an angle that's too subtle for the human eye to notice, and you'll wonder why it's running so hot. So that screw comes to a dead stop. I cannot turn it anymore. Back in through the top, and then we'll tighten that screw, and it's not turning anymore. That is installed. The last piece of this puzzle is to put the fan on. This is the fan, the part that turns. That's the part, see how the center is moving? That's the part that draws the air in. This side where the support brackets are, see how when a fan spins, this middle doesn't turn? That's the side the air is coming out. Some fans have arrows and indicators of rotation direction and airflow direction. If you understand how a fan works, they all work the same. On every fan, the side that turns draws the air in, and the center that doesn't turn is the side the air is coming out. We want the airflow to move this way. We want it to go out over the I/O shield. So that means we want to draw the air in through the radiator and out the back of the case. We also need to hook the power cable up to the header on the board. So we don't want the power cable all the way over here. We want the power cable as close as we can get it to where it's going to plug in order to keep the cable management clean and make it look like a nice professional build. So that's how we know where to put these wire hangers. They're going to go on each side. One goes here like this. And then the same thing on the other side. See that? And then we're gonna, there's a very subtle groove right into this heatsink. And I love how Scythe did that. And this fan is gonna sit right inside of that. Now come take a look at the side here. I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna pull it and it just locks in. And I have to hold the fan, look at my other hand. I have to hold the fan because right now the fan has all this pressure on one side, so it wants to swing open like a door. But I've gotta now hold it with the other hand, grab this hanger right here and pull it back, and that locks the fan. Finally, we're gonna take this cable, and down here on the board, one of these says CPU fan, which I'm guessing is the gray one. It'll also say in your manual. Let me get my glasses just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure it's that gray one. Usually the CPU fan is the one closest to the edge of the board regardless. Yeah, so that's right here. It says on the board, CPU fan. It says CPU optional below it. That means the one above is the CPU fan, the one below. That would be if we added a second fan onto the back of this cooler for what we call a push-pull configuration, which could improve the cooling dynamics. If necessary, it's an option. And that's what the other fan header's for. Now this is a good time to grab a nylon zip tie, take this wire tie off and replace that. But I'm gonna do that a little bit later. We're not ready for that yet. And then we can install our RAM. Our RAM goes into these sockets here. And this side should open too. I open all of them. Now, on this board, I don't believe it matters if we use the first and third or the second and fourth. And it's unfortunate that they did not color code these. Usually 2 will be one color and 2 will be another color, and they're offset. You don't use 2 in a row. You always skip one. Whether you start at the first one or you start at the last one, skip one and do the next one. Shouldn't matter if you're only using 2 sticks of RAM. That gets us in dual channel mode. And we are only using 2 sticks of RAM, so I don't believe it matters if we start here, skip one and do one here, or start here, skip one and do one here. I think it's equal performance-wise, but I'm gonna check the manual just to verify, because this is a Z390 and I'm used to the Z370. And in the manual, it states with this diagram exactly what I said. It says, if you have 2 modules, you can skip the first socket and use the second one, and then skip the next one and use the last one. Or you can use the first socket, skip the second one and use the third one. So it's exactly what I said. If you've got 4 modules, I think you use them all. Which ones do I use? So yeah, you want to use 2 or you're going to use 4. It doesn't matter which socket you start at, just skip the next one. So you're going to have a blank socket in between your memory modules. And as long as you do, on an Intel platform, at least you got it correct. So let me get the RAM opened up. And this is super easy to install. Thank you. Now you do see I like Corsair product. You'll see me use a lot of it. Corsair is not a sponsor. And I'm not solely using Corsair only, but I will buy it when I have the chance. Does that look like it's dipping down on one side? Is that just an optical illusion?
I can't tell.
That's weird. There's usually tape. Yeah, it's like it dips right in right there.
That's
Never
weird.
noticed that before. I'm going to just take this tape off. You don't have to, but my OCD requires. And then I'm going to, I think I'm going to keep it away from the CPU. Make sure the notch in the RAM aligns with the notch in the socket, so it only goes in one direction. And just set it gently in there. Once it's gently set in and aligned, and you can use your thumbs, push down one corner, then the other corner, then you should hear a satisfying click when you do that. Again, we're going to just repeat the same procedure. And once again, it doesn't matter which socket we use or which socket we start with, as long as we make a socket empty before the next one. That only leaves, if I leave a socket empty here, there's no place else to go. If I leave a socket empty here, then it forces me to use the very first slot right there. And again, corners and clicks. And I'm going to push these other retention levers up so they get out of our way. And that's 32 gigs of RAM installed with a 2 gig SSD with our Core i9-9900K CPU and our Mugen 5 heatsink all installed. Motherboard is prepped. Time for a little bit of a break. We're going to switch over to camera 1 right there. And you can set that down and take a little break. I'm sure your arm is tired. And the screwdriver, we'll put that in the box with the rest of the parts. In fact, what I will do is I'll grab a Ziploc bag and I'm going to take all the extra cooler parts and instructions and I'm going to keep them all together so that the owner of the computer has them in one bag, you know, with the instructions and the extra thermal compound. That all goes together. And that way it doesn't get interspersed with other parts we're going to stick in the motherboard box and manuals and such when we're all done. And again, they'll get the screwdriver. That belongs to them. And we got about 1,164 people watching. Happy Friday, everybody. Can you use different sizes of RAM? Can you use two 16 gigs and two 8 gig? Yes, you can. However, you want to make sure that they have the same CAS latency. CAS. Watch the, I forget what that stands for. Something strobe. Anyway, just pay attention to the CAS latency. Make sure they're the same. And if there is a problem, because even if you make sure you have the same CAS latency, you still may have an incompatibility. It's possible. So no guarantee, but if it's going to work, you need to make sure they have the same CAS latency. Carrie, did you get your Acronis emailer? They had you featured. I haven't checked my email for a few hours. That's very nice if they did. I'm looking through the comments to see if there's any questions I can ask. I can answer. Madi has contributed $10. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Madi.
Thanks, Madi. What if you want to use two fans but only have one CPU fan connection? You can use a splitter. You can buy a fan splitter for that. Generally speaking, motherboards that don't give you that second fan header are not intended for you to put a second fan on. That's why they didn't give you the header. So it sounds to me like you should change your motherboard. And if you change your motherboard, you probably won't have the heat issues, more than likely. However, if you want to force the fact, you know, if you want to make it happen and use brute force, you can use a splitter. But generally speaking, it's a sign that you're not supposed to do it. Is that your wife? No, we are not from the South.
And this is not Game of Thrones.
So that's what it's like in his
No more HBO for you people. You lost your HBO privileges.
Let's see. Miss any other questions here? Yes, the RAM does dip down. They all dip down like that. I've never noticed that before. Did he say Corsair is a sponsor? I said Corsair is not a sponsor. Dogs are looking at me like, what did we do? I'm not talking to you.
Lyle stopped in his tracks.
What'd I do? Is there an advantage to using 2 versus 4 sticks of RAM? I already have a video that is specific to that. It's a quick tips video that you edited together.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there, waiting for you to get your answer. All the parts for today's build are listed in the video notes below the video, so please be sure and check those out. Links to everything is there along with the description. Will the paste smell if it's not transferring the heat correctly? No, but the parts that are getting too hot may give off an odor, not the paste. Well, you got Jimmy's love.
He's got a lot to give. He's trying to get me to work the back and you to work the front.
He's no dummy.
And he's knocking me over.
All right, I think I'm caught up with the comments. Jeremy Kramer just contributed $5. He says, here's for your 2 dogs. Give them a treat. Great job, Carrie. Where did you find the dogs? Shelters.
They found him.
Shelters. No, they didn't show up. Whatever happened to the gaming graphics line? It's in my office. It's heavy and cumbersome, so I haven't brought it back out yet. Tom Jackson's contributed $7.77. Keep these most excellent vids coming. Yes, sir. Thank you for your contribution. It certainly helps to doing just that. Can you use too much memory? There's only so much memory the chipset will acknowledge is plugged in, so anything beyond that would just be a waste of money because it won't be seen or used. Alan Holmes contributed $10. He says, here's for some more parts. Thank you, Alan. How are the new floors holding up? This is the first time you've seen the floors today.
In person, yeah.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Look at that look Jimmy's giving you.
No, you don't.
They beat me. They don't feed me. Look at my pathetic face. I'm skin and bones. I'm gonna blow away in the wind to give me a cookie. What do you think about GPU overclocking? I think that it doesn't make you a better gamer. You should work on your gaming skills and less on your overclocking skills.
Thank you, Zero Core.
I just think that these people that invest a lot of money in their rig thinking they're going to be better at gaming is like investing great money in pots and pans thinking you're going to be a better chef. I've got a really good camera now, so that makes me a better photographer, right? And I got a really expensive piano, so that makes me a better piano player.
Got a 4K YouTube camera. We should have the best videos.
Right, and I want to overclock my piano and add 12 more keys because I want it to have 12 more keys than any other piano has.
I would love to see somebody play a game with a stock CPU and then overclock it and have them play the same game, but don't tell them which one was overclocked and which one was stock, and see.
And don't let them run any benchmarks.
Right.
No frames per second. Just see if they could pick it, and they have to do it 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good video. I think we should do that.
Well, we have to find somebody who's already brainwashed into thinking that does make a difference, right? We have to find somebody who's absolutely convinced that overclocking is worth it.
Shouldn't be too hard.
And then we have to then say, okay, now that you've insisted that overclocking is worth it, one of these systems is overclocked, one is not. They have the exact same software. Everything else is the same hardware. And we're going to load a game on it. You're not allowed to see your frames per second. You're not allowed to see any benchmark information. And you play the game, load it up.
Yeah.
And you tell me which system is which.
I think we should do a video on that.
Also, we should give them like a real high-end Razer high DPI mouse, and then
we could do
just a basic Logitech mouse, and then let them tell me which is, how does that affect their performance in the game ultimately.
We should do it with Merrick, seeing as how Merrick is a big gamer. He would definitely, if there was somebody that would know the difference, it would be him.
Right. You can't argue with the results. I mean, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit it.
I disagree with you, but I think if there was a difference to be noticed, somebody like Merrick who plays video games a lot,
it doesn't. But it's just not going to make you a better gamer. If all it was to gaming was it just required you to have deeper pockets and you could just beat everybody, why would you ever want to play?
Well, it's like you said, that just means the rich people win, which is real life. And if you play video games to escape real life, why would you try to emulate real life?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, ideally, games.
I did like to play The Sims, though. So.
Yeah, I don't think overclocking really helps that performance of The Sims.
No, I meant it's emulating real life.
Oh.
Sort of just undermined my own argument.
All right. Yeah, some people use like controllers when they game. One of the second place winner of the Fortnite competition was using an Xbox controller. But you notice they didn't tell you what the hardware was of the machines all those gamers in the competition were using. And not a word about what was the CPU, how was it overclocked. I bet you it was some pretty basic stuff.
Well, I've seen people play Fortnite on mobile phones.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the competition,
right?
The tournament, that was it.
I just don't think that that's a game that requires much to begin with.
Paul Newman says it's the same with cars, Carrie. Absolutely. I see plenty of rich people driving around highly precision, high performance machines, and they have no idea how to drive them. No clue how to drive them. Yeah. What a shame. Doesn't make them a better driver. I'm just continuing to look through the comments as I'm taking a little break from the build here, because the next step will be putting the motherboard into the case, which won't take very long at all. Let's take a quick look. See if there are any other questions. Can you RAID 0 3 different brands of SSDs? Yeah, the brands of an SSD don't matter. A RAID 0 or any RAID configuration is in no way, shape, or form connected to the manufacturer of the drive. However, the smallest drive will be the capacity of the biggest one. So in these RAID configurations. So keep that in mind. All things being equal, you'd be fine. And just kind of looking back through here. Yeah, those rich people that can afford those expensive cars should just pay for somebody to drive them, in my opinion.
Did you watch it? There's a television show called Black Monday.
Never heard of it.
It's got Don Cheadle, and he's like a stock market guy in the 80s, has his own Wall Street company, and he is so rich and he wants everybody to know it, So he has a Lamborghini and a limo morphed into one car, and he calls it the Limbo. And he has a driver driving around in it, and it is not fast, nor is it comfortable.
He's flexing. He's flexing. Is his name Flex?
Flex.
Let me show you my money.
Flex.
Flex.
That is a great show, by the way.
If you say so. Okay. Any other questions you guys have? Technical questions? I'd be happy to answer them. Any concerns that you have? Or any questions about the build? And Winston Ang Lu has contributed $1 Canadian. Thank you, Winston. I know Winston watches us from Vancouver. Carrie, have you tried the new AMD 3600? I don't try. I build what customers order. So if a customer orders one, I'd be happy to build one. I don't have feelings one way or the other. Heavy Sonic likes my shirt. Thank you, Heavy Sonic. What is the minimum size case for that motherboard? Any ATX compatible case. What is your preferred Linux distro? I don't have a preferred Linux distro. This is not a Linux channel. That's like asking me what my favorite lipstick is.
What's your favorite coffee?
Is there a good coffee?
I think that.
Ew, coffee. Siri Svendberg has contributed 10 Norwegian krona. Thank you, Siri. Coffee smells great. It just tastes terrible.
It tastes like it smells.
It doesn't.
It does.
It smells wonderful and it tastes bitter. Now, you give me about 7 or 8 of those little sugar packets, I can make it tolerable. Carrie, do you think a vast free antivirus is enough? I've got a quick tip video just on that topic alone. I would suggest you look through my video library so you don't ask me to keep repeating the same information over and over again. Those videos are there to answer all the common questions I get, and that's a very common one. Jesse is enjoying the build. Hey, thanks, Jesse. I'm glad you're here. What do I think of the obsolete Phenom 4, the Phenom 2 by X4 3.2 gig? It's old and obsolete. But if it meets your needs, it really doesn't matter what I think of it. It matters what you think of it if it belongs to you. And if you're happy with it, that's all that matters. Jesse agrees with me. Coffee smells so good, but I hate the taste. Yeah, I'll walk into a coffee shop and it smells fantastic. Try it.
Tastes good.
Hot chocolate, that tastes good and it smells good. Coffee's a liar. Coffee's like,
That's
don't
your
I smell
sugar-
delicious?
That's your sugar addiction talking.
Don't judge me. How many fans are going to be in this build? I haven't opened the case yet, but it looks like we've got one here on the back. We'll have this. We'll have a fan in the power supply. So that's 3. And then there might be some up front. Yeah, it looks like there's at least 1, if not 2 up front. I think there's 3 in the case.
Steve contributed $2. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the compliment.
He says, great build, Carrie, and awesome video work. Linda, right on.
Somebody asked if I liked Coke or Pepsi. It's really, my favorite is Diet Dr. Pepper, but if they don't have Diet Dr. Pepper, then I want Diet Coke. I never want Pepsi. When they ask me if Pepsi's okay, I'm like, is fake money okay?
Coffee made right is a must for all IT people. Last I checked, I was an IT person.
I'm very picky about my coffee.
I'm sure you pay $6 a cup.
No,
Do you overclock your coffee?
I do.
Your coffee overclocks you?
Yeah, exactly.
I drink a gallon of coffee every morning to wake me up so I can have my coffee. That's from the surly Sasquatch. That's what coffee will do to you. It'll make you a surly Sasquatch.
I'm working on it.
What temps am I expecting this machine to run at? I'm expecting the machine to run within the engineering specifications designed as intended and designed by the CPU engineers and the cooler engineers, which follow the requirements dictated by the CPU cooler engineers have to follow from the amount of pressure that gets applied to the cooler, the coverage of the cooler, the airflow, all that has to be in compliance with what the engineers lay out in the specs who designed the CPU. And when everything's done right and you're not pushing it beyond the limits that the engineers designed it for, I expect it to run within the tolerance, which means it'll probably run in the upper, I would say the mid 70 degrees centigrade and up to as high as mid 80s, and it'll be fine. I think the cutoff, the throttling point on this is the thermal junction, what do they call it? It's like 105 degrees centigrade. So I like to have a little overhead on the maximum, but remember the maximum under normal loads is not the same as the maximum under testing. Testing rarely represents an accurate representation of reality. So we put it through hell to test it. We give it to the customer who's just going to use it like a normal customer. They're, you know, if it'll pass through the hellish test, then it'll pass through everyday usage without any problem. But we'll find out here. It is what it is. Predictions really don't matter. Why don't you install Windows outside of the case? I see people build and recommend testing the system before you install it. I don't recommend you do that because it really opens up the can of worms with regards to the odds of you damaging the system when it's exposed like this. If you're that, so there's only, in my opinion, there's only two types of people that would test the system before they install it. And those are people who don't trust the parts they purchased, or they don't trust themselves. They don't have enough confidence in the materials they bought, or they don't have enough confidence in themselves to know what they're doing. And that results in doing more work and results in increasing the odds of damage if you follow those procedures. Now, it's your parts, and you're welcome to build it any way you see fit. My recommendation is you build with quality parts, which I only use in my build videos, and you follow the steps exactly as I show them in the sense of how I hold the parts, how I install the parts, and you should have no lack of confidence that would justify jeopardizing the integrity of your build by trying to power it on outside of the case. I just think it's a huge judgment error. However, it's not a guarantee you're going to cause any damage. A lot of people do that. It's just fine. And a lot of people do that and waste their time because it powers on exactly like it's supposed to, and all they did was completely waste their time. The board's got to go in the case. And if I tested every board before I installed it, you think this build is going slow now, and you think customers are waiting, a couple of weeks to get a build from me, they're going to wait longer because you're making the build take longer, and it's completely unnecessary. If you use quality parts and you know what you're doing, it's a step you don't need.
Right. Well, it's got to go in the case.
If somebody, if somebody sent me a used board, said, here, you can have this, I would probably test it outside of the case. But if I'm buying a brand new board from a manufacturer I'm familiar with and I know it's quality, what am I testing?
Well, also, how long does it take to put the board in the case? 5 minutes?
Yeah, and at least that way you don't have to worry about...
more than that time to test the board outside of the case.
Plus, it increases the odds of harm.
It makes no sense to me at all. It's got to go in the case anyway. It doesn't take a lot of time to put it in the case.
Well, that's typical human behavior, right? If you lack the confidence and you want to double check yourself, then you're increasing the odds that you're going to cause a problem.
Right.
That's just typical human nature.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could do it and not have any problem. If you're careful, it's fine, and you got a lot of time on your hands and you're not in a hurry and makes you feel good. Don't let me stop you. I'm not suggesting doing so guarantees damaging anything, but it does increase the likelihood of damage. The board is not grounded when it's sitting out here like this. It's only grounded when it's in the case. Running an ungrounded board is just a foolish thing to do, in my opinion. I would do it only when it's necessary, primarily because of time.
Yeah.
Why would I do things that are unnecessary?
Exactly.
When have you seen me install a board where I had to take it back out where it didn't work? You can look through
Never.
10 years of videos. I think there's been an occasion where things didn't seat right and I had to take the board out. It's pretty rare. So,
not that I've seen.
So basically what happens is if you test every board outside, you'll spend more time doing that.
Right.
Trying to save time by not installing it and having to take it out.
And trying to potentially solve a problem
that doesn't
that
exist.
You don't have.
And then create a problem by checking for it.
Right, which is what we all do so many times.
All right.
I think Jeremy Kramer asked if I liked Mountain Dew or 7-Up. Neither.
Your Music Sucks has contributed $5. Thank you for that.
I need that on a t-shirt.
There's a link, Malix482 provided to Carrie's Quick Tips channel. Right on, thank you for that. That's where all the Quick Tips videos are. If you're just looking for a quick answer to a question, the most commonly asked questions are addressed in how many videos? 80? How many videos are in there?
Yeah, I think they're on the Quick Tips channel. I think there's 80 or 81 videos and more to come.
Most of them are like 5 minutes. Right in 5 minutes?
Yeah, the idea, most of them are, about 5 minutes. We do have a couple that are, I think we have 1 or 2 that are 20 minutes, or even one that might be 30 minutes, but the majority of the videos on there are 10 minutes or less. That's the goal of that channel, is to deliver everything in 10 minutes or less. But sometimes I like to throw things that I think are important, and they might be more than 10 minutes, but I throw them up there anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual though.
Yes.
Coke removes rust.
So does water. That is a popular
Water
myth.
creates rust.
And removes it.
Would you rather ingest something that creates rust, or would you rather ingest something that removes it?
Well, but that's the popular belief, is that Coke removes rust, but Mythbusters did a whole thing about that where they just use plain water.
Don't get facts involved.
And water,
this is the internet.
Water
People, no.
Just as effective.
No, this is the internet.
Rust
this is the
Coke.
Internet. And if you say something, it's true.
Oh, okay.
Did you know whales live entirely on a diet of bananas?
You didn't?
How could you have not known that?
What are you, some kind of
I saw it on the internet.
Must be true.
It's a fact.
That's been a long-standing myth. That's why Mythbusters found it important enough to cover it.
Coke is sugar water. That's all it is. What do they give you when they hook you up to an IV in the hospital? What is that? Sugar water.
No, it's electrolytes. It's magnesium, potassium, sodium, and
Is it? I thought
water.
it was just a bag of sugar water.
No.
I've been going to the wrong hospital.
Right? They're just hooking you up with Coke. Coca-Cola, please.
I'd like that intravenously.
Oh, I should have worn my... It says Carrie should wear a t-shirt with his logo on it. I should have worn mine. I have one. I should have worn it today.
Carrie, do you have a favorite tech bench? Yes, I like the tech benches from a company called High Speed PC. You'll see me use it from time to time. It's been a while. Mark Baggett said it's saline and water.
I think it's more than just saline, though.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think
sure.
There's usually a little bit of extra electrolytes.
Coke doesn't have any arsenic in it, whereas your well water probably does. The city water has a certain level of arsenic that's allowed. John Brady's contributed $10. Carrie, your sister compliments your sense of humor and channel in general. Thank you, John. That's kind of you, John. Most of your base IV fluids are either dextrose 5% or normal saline at 0.9%. That sounds pretty official. I mean, that sounded good.
It was sugar.
It is sugar. If it ends in OSE, it's sugar.
Not always. Sucralose isn't sugar.
It's sugar-like.
And dextrose does sound like sugar, though.
Electrolytes are usually added by the pharmacy when ordered by the provider. Well, that sounds pretty official.
I guess that would make sense because you can have too much magnesium, and if you get too much magnesium, you can have a heart attack. So there's that. Or maybe it's potassium. I don't know.
Well, thanks for the medical advice.
Right. Don't listen to me. Just drink your Zip Fizz and eat your steak.
All right. So in prepping the case, we can take the side panel off here, and I can stay with that camera for right now. Okay. In fact, I want to move this camera out of the way because this is, do me a favor and just put that on the table somewhere where it's not going to fall. And I'll even use the included, oh, I can't use the included driver. These are straight edge screws here. So I'll take these out. Not sure if I'm blocking it entirely, but I'm just removing these thumb screws off of the glass panel. When you take your panel off, be sure and set it aside somewhere where you're not going to accidentally knock it or scratch it. The glass does have a plastic film on it to keep it from any marks during shipping. I'm going to leave that on there for the customer to take off because this has got a long way to go. This will be shipped all the way to Florida from Arizona. It's over 2,000 miles. So I'm going to just get this piece of glass out of the way so that it won't get accidentally knocked over or damaged during the build process, especially with someone walking around with a camera who may not be paying attention to anything outside of what they're looking at on the camera. And then I want to get this out of here. Let me put this battery on a charger just in case we run out of juice. We'll have another one ready to go. Give me just a second, guys. I'm going to plug the charger in. There we go. Hopefully that'll work without me staring at it. Now inside, this is the Be Quiet Dark Base 700. And you'll see we've got a big fan here in the back. Looks like a 140 millimeter fan in the back, one up in the front. We've got a shroud that covers up the power supply and all the cabling, which means you don't necessarily have to spend money on a modular power supply when you have a case like this, because all your cables are going to be hidden anyway. So there's no worry of hiding the cables. You know, a lot of people like the modulars because it's easier with cable management, but here you're just going to shove all your cables back there anyway, and nobody's ever going to see it. In this box is going to be all the mounting hardware required to mount whatever the case supports. Every computer case manufacturer, when the case is new, will have a box, not typically this large. I'm not sure why this is so big. Let's see what's in here. Do you see those bodacious cat-like reflexes I have? They're my BCLRs. Oh, what was that? There's some
so that was short-lived then?
May I remind you, I'm old. So the fact it happened once is pretty darn impressive.
Well, then it's a good thing you got it on video.
Right? So this is some kind of drive adapter of some sorts. Probably should read the instructions. And then what else do we have? We've got, don't say anything. Got some screws for fans. We've got some Velcro wire management.
Look in the case before you put stuff in there?
Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. So I got a bag of screws, a bag of screws, a bag of screws. These 4 long screws would be for another case fan, probably up front, probably to go right up in here. Suppose you could take these out and put a liquid cooler radiator in there. Potentially could put one up here on top, maybe. Not sure, depending on, oh, it doesn't look like there's enough room. You could put more fans up there, it looks like. There's a piece of tape here that needs to come off. Usually, if there's a piece of tape there, that means these pieces come off. That would be my guess. Yeah. So there's some plastic covers here that can optionally come off. We're probably going to have to do something like that to feed power to the graphics. Oh no, I guess we can run the graphics card power through the back here. The back does have a foam pad on it, and that's probably because you have a glass side. And so that makes the system louder. So to compensate for the glass side, you have a foam pad to help reduce the amount of noise.
That makes sense.
This motherboard tray can come out and be flipped the other way. And in doing so, then you could put your glass panel, I guess, on this side. I think, is that how it works? Again, I don't know why anybody would flip the motherboard tray to the other side, but apparently it can be done with this case.
Can you say the name of the case again?
Yeah, this is the Dark Base 700 from Be Quiet. This is the $180 version of this case. It's got a built-in fan controller, which we'll see on the back side of it here. I don't like using built-in fan controllers. On these motherboards, we have a lot of fan headers. Let the motherboard BIOS control your fans. Having a switch to control your fans is very 1990s. I'm not sure why people still do it, honestly. It's not hurting anything to have it. You've got like a low, medium, high, and auto. But if you just hook up to your motherboard fan headers, you wouldn't have that problem. Some people say, well, maybe my motherboard doesn't have that many fan headers. Well, why would you be putting that into a $180 case? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Any moderate to high-end motherboard is going to have plenty of fan headers on it. Only the cheaper, less expensive, bargain hunting motherboards are going to have a minimal number of fan headers. And then you can make up for that by putting it into a really expensive case where it's got its own fan controller. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that fails all sense of logic as far as I'm concerned. But it's your money, spend it as you want to. But ideally, you'll have a case that is equivalent in value to the motherboard. If you've got a mid to high-end motherboard, you should have a mid to high-end case to put it in. You're buying a cheap motherboard, put it into a cheap case. That's what I would do.
Makes sense.
Can you paint an I/O shield? Of course, yeah. You can paint an I/O shield. Ferris El Manay has contributed $2.50. Hey, Carrie and Linda, much love from Bahrain. Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess I can take this other side panel off just to see what's hiding behind here. And it looks like it's going to capture these screws for us. Capturing the screws means the screws don't come out. They stay on the panel. So when I remove the panel, I don't have to worry about losing the screws. I just worry about losing the panel. I should be able to pull back on that and take that off. And that should expose, yep, there's the fan controller I talked about right there. And then this is the material, as you can see, that's there to deaden the sound, to help make the case quieter. and there's no see-through panel or glass on the other side, because that wouldn't make any sense. So far, I am liking this case from Be Quiet. It seems to have a lot of nice, well thought out design. And I can already tell what this is now that I've opened up this side. Look at here. It's one of these. This is clearly a caddy for a 3.5-inch drive.
Whoa.
But you can also put solid state drives. See how it's got the 4 screws there?
Nice.
It looks like you could put a 2.5-inch drive. It looks like you could put a 2.5-inch drive on each side and hold 2 of them. And I would imagine, how would I mount a 3.5-inch drive in here? Where would it screw down? Well, there's some holes here, but what about the other? Or maybe you'd use one of these and one of these. I don't know. We're not using any 3.5-inch drives on this build. And these grommets, where do these come into play?
Is this all cable management stuff?
I think what you can do, if you really wanted to, again, I could open the manual and read it, but I think you can squeeze this out. Does this come out the other side? Is anything holding it in?
It doesn't appear that way.
Let me take a look at this other side. I think I can pull that out.
They're just covers.
Yeah, I think they're just covers.
But I like how it has the chambers.
So you can take this out, right? And based on these holes, see how there's 2 holes here and 1 hole there? See how there's 2 screws? Oh, I think this can go right in there like this. And now we can add more hard drives.
Oh, cool.
Right? And you can place that into any of these, and I expect you could probably order more of these if you needed more. So if you wanted a big storage server.
I'm going to grab the camera because there's something else on this case that's cool.
Yeah.
But I think you have to really see it. And maybe you've seen this before, but I haven't.
All right, you ready for me to switch over to that camera?
Yes, please.
There you go.
Okay.
What you looking at?
So this is the back end here, where all these, got your cable management here.
Yep.
Look at this. I've never seen that before. Have you seen that? Like you can just stick cables through here.
Yep.
And have these little.
Pretty standard.
Well, I'm easily impressed.
This is your fan controller. You'll see looks like there's 2 controllers, right? So they're your left side and your right side. And then what you would do is you'd feed off one of the motherboard headers, and then all the fans on that side are going to run off of that one header, which is pretty stupid because the fan headers on the board are placed in a position so that they can uniquely control each fan. When you put a splitter on it, that means all the fans run at the same speed of whatever that fan header is putting out.
Oh, that's sort of.
So if it's saying, for example, the top of the case is hot, but the bottom of the case is cool, and the header's down, towards a sensor that's at the bottom, then it says, I'm going to turn the fans down. Well, I'm going to turn, the fan header only controls one fan as far as the motherboard BIOS is concerned. And when you split it into a controller, it still thinks all of that's one fan and they all spin at whatever speed the BIOS is putting out. So that's why I'm not a big fan of this fan controller or any fan controller. Let the motherboard BIOS control your fans. This is 2019. Fan controllers are so 20 years ago. They really are. So I think this is a waste. I think this is unnecessary. It's adding cost to the case. It's a $180 case. It's not cheap, but it's also not built cheap. So it's built, the materials are very strong. I could probably stand on this case. Not that I recommend it. So you do definitely get what you pay for. Lots of room for expansion, plenty of room for airflow. Even on the back, it looks like there's room for more 2 solid state drives right in here. You see that? See these 4 holes? It looks like we could put 2 solid state drives, mount them right on the back, right? One here, one here. You can mount 2 in each one of these, or you could do 3.5-inch drives in these. Looks like another place for another 2.5-inch drive right here. So lots of room for 2.5-inch SATA, and none of this matters when you're using M.2 anyway. So Pretty cool.
Looks good. Nice
So
to the other side.
the case is not overwhelmingly complicated. It doesn't have a lot of bells, whistles, and features. It appears to be designed really clear in its design. They'll give kudos to Be Quiet for an intuitive design, because I have not opened that manual yet. And then I'm going to put this plug back in because we don't need that. What's the secret to putting it back in? I'm sure I'm doing this the hard way. It's interesting that they can stick out. I wonder why they have multiple seating positions. Must be a reason for that. They're definitely harder to put in than they were to take out. There it is. Just snaps in. Now, looking inside the case, we need to make sure all our standoffs are in the right place. And on this board, we'll have 2 across the top, 2 across the middle. This will actually go to 3 across the top, 3 across the middle if it's a full-size board, and then there should be 3 across the bottom. All the standoffs are pre-installed. So unless you're dealing with a different size motherboard, you may have to move these standoffs to different locations. This is important to check this before you install your board to ensure that you're not going to be having one of these little standoffs ground out against something metal on the back of the board. But these are the standard ATX locations. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and then they go down in a straight line. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and each line has 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We look on the board, we should see ideally this is going to have 2 or 3. This board has 1, 2, 3 across the top, 1, 2, 3 across the middle, 1, 2, 3 across the bottom. See here? 1, 2, 3, middle, 1, 2, 3, and the top, 1, 2, 3. Also notice we have 2 connectors here for the power supply for the CPU power. You have an 8-pin and a 4-pin. These may be difficult to put in once the motherboard is mounted. So we might want to attach those before we install the board. And I do need to get a nylon zip tie and tie this cable up now, because if I wait until after I install the board, it's going to make my life more difficult than it needs to be. So I'm going to grab a zip tie. Ah, motion sickness.
Sorry.
Well, just leave it like that. Don't bother fixing it.
I'm going
It's
to
just live.
switch to the next camera. You just beat me to it.
You should switch to the next camera first. Now when you edit that out, whose fault is it? Just saying.
I gotta get one.
All right. So I'm just going to grab a nylon zip tie here and we're going to tie this up. Oops. I did not do that well. Just want to tighten this one up a little bit. Although at this point, nobody's going to see it. Much better. All right. And Madi's contributed $10 again. Hey, thank you, Madi. This is Madi's computer that we're building. And you should all thank Madi for ordering these parts and giving us permission to film his build so that we can share this content with you. You know, it's, again, I'm not buying the part, I'm not selling the parts, I'm just building, customers pay me to build machines, among other things, repairs. And some customers allow me to film that process and share it with you. And it's because of people like that that make videos like this possible. Gary, you can adjust how deep these covers are to use them as cable grommets. You'd have to have a lot of extra cable to be wrapping it around something that big. I would suggest you bought the wrong cables. How can you flip the motherboard when there's only one I/O shield? The whole thing comes out and flips the other way. There's probably some YouTube videos where they demonstrate it. This whole piece, it's not just the back tray, it looks like a letter L, and it comes out and it flips the opposite way. That's my understanding anyway. I haven't tried it, and I have no idea why anybody would want to. But it's apparently reversible. So. But I imagine this whole back area flips. These two pieces are connected, the back and the side. So when this slides out, you flip it the other way. And then everything's backwards. And this side would be on this side. And then the other panel would go here, and then this panel would go here. So it would just be exactly opposite. It's reversible. It's not rocket science, guys. Pretty easy stuff. But just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Just like deep frying your shirt.
Right. Another Simpsons reference.
They're all Simpsons references. You only recognize some of them.
Yes. Interesting. I think this side comes off some way. I think this side panel right here comes off. I'm trying to think how it comes off. So to me, the measure of a good case is one where the case design should be intuitive. It shouldn't be so complicated. What are you doing? It shouldn't be so complicated that you have to, study the manual. Case designs have not really changed very much since the ATX standard came in, though I have seen cases that were so complex that the owner's manual was absolutely required, and even then it wasn't clear, and I had to go watch YouTube videos to figure it out. This case, I like the simplicity of it. I like how obvious things are. There may be some features of it that I'm simply not getting because they're not obvious to me, that I wouldn't know without checking the manual out, but the one thing I'm wondering at this point is, I'm pretty certain this piece comes off right here, but I'm not sure if it just pops off, if there's a release I've got to press, which I'm sure I can just open the manual and find out. But I can see it's moving, so it doesn't, I just don't know what's holding it in. There might be some screw somewhere, maybe?
Maybe this screw right here?
No, it doesn't go all the way through.
Huh.
Nope. But maybe on the bottom, is there a release? There's a big filter on the bottom. So when you have your fan for your power supply, there's this filter under here that you can take out and clean the dust, because remember, the fan on the power supply draws air in to keep the power supply cool, and it's got good clearance. So if this were to sit on, you know, heavy carpeting or something like that, it's gonna not affect its ability to breathe. Yeah, so I like the clearance. Clearance is fantastic here. I can't imagine anybody having carpeting that would be taller than that would affect the ability for this to cool. I know those pieces come off. I know this piece comes off, but I don't think I need to replace it. I think what I can do right now is put the power supply in. So here I've got the Seasonic Focus 80 Plus Gold rated power supply. Let me just make some room. Let's get that out of the way, get this out of the way.
How often should you clean that filter here in Arizona?
I do it twice a year. And certainly at least once a year, but twice a year would be...
Twice a year in the desert, once a year everywhere else?
Yeah. And certainly once a year regardless. And whether you've got positive pressure or negative air pressure, you still have dust, and you still need to blow it out once a year, minimum. It doesn't change anything. Might make you feel good. I've got positive air pressure. But you still get dust, and you still have to blow it out once a year. So it doesn't change that. Positive or negative air pressure doesn't buy you more time with regards to that once a year. It's still going to be once a year. Now, some people live in a more dusty environment than others. Phoenix is excessive. And I would say twice a year in Phoenix.
There you go.
So in the box,
Busy Rich Robbins.
we've got some nylon zip ties and some Velcro cable management tools. We've got a power cable. We've got this will force the power supply on if you plug this in. I don't know if you were priming a liquid cooler, like a custom liquid cooler, you needed to prime the pump, you could do it with that. It's a weird thing to include. This is a modular power supply, and in this bag will be all of the modular power cables, which we don't need to worry about just yet. And within the box, that shipped in a box, is a bag.
In the box.
Is this bag to hold our cables, or is the bag that's holding the cables to hold our cables? What's this bag for?
That's the bag to hold the power supply that was in the box that held the power supply.
But what do I do with it?
The bag?
Yeah.
You put all your marbles in there. Or you can get your stuff together. You put it all in that bag.
So there's power supply.
Take it to the stuff store.
There's probably plastic over the logo, because God forbid that got scratched. Power supply could get scratched. There's no plastic over it. Let's see, I bet there's plastic on there. Or I'm going to peel the logo off. Let's see which one it is. Wow, they really stuck it on there.
Want to use my nails?
Yeah, see if you can peel that off. And everything else in this box is empty, so that can go over there.
I feel like I could scratch it. Getting the anti-scratch.
Does this look really ridiculous and stupid?
What's different?
The hat. How dare you? Really?
Seriously?
I've never seen one that hard to peel off before.
It's almost like you're not supposed to be doing this. Oh, this is so satisfying.
Right? Tell me what I'm not supposed to do. Now look how shiny it is under there.
Except for where I scratched it, getting the
You
anti-scratch
didn't scratch it,
sticker
you
on.
lie.
No,
Look at that. Beautiful. What we're doing on many of the power supply manufacturers, they like to have their logo on the bottom. and they cover it with a piece of plastic. And it's fine to leave that on. It doesn't hurt anything. And in fact, when you go to sell your computer years from now to the next person, they can peel it off and it'll be just like brand new, and they should thank you for keeping it shiny and new for the next owner. But me, I like to keep it shiny and new right out of the gate, or have it come out shiny and new right out of the gate. And on the back, this is all the cables where they're going to plug in back here. And we're going to install this with the fan facing down. Remember, there's a filter down here, and we're going to draw air in. This draws air in. It doesn't blow air out. It draws air in, and then the air comes out this side here. None of the air that comes into the power supply has any impact on the components inside of the case, nor does adding more fans into the case have any impact on the cooling of the power supply. It's all solely a self-contained system that just maintains itself. Oh, I think there's more plastic over that one.
Oh, geez.
See, anytime there's a company logo, there's gonna be plastic over it. It's just the way they do it. And I'm not having it. Just like so. See how easy that was? Now I can remove the side panel. I don't really have to get down in here and put this power supply in. That's just gonna go in, like I mentioned, fan facing down. And we just align the power supply with the mounting holes here on the back. And probably, I've got to guess, in the bag that came with the power supply, there's probably some mounting screws in here, right? Yep, there they are. And a Go Faster sticker. Mm-hmm. Right there.
Is there plastic over it? Is there a sticker over the sticker? Because they put a bag in a box.
And the box came in another box.
Right, so maybe there's a sticker over the sticker.
Maybe. Because, you know, the idea is to try and get the ocean filled with trash as quickly as possible. You'll see I'm still using the screwdriver that came with the cooler, because we can use this screwdriver to build the whole computer.
Can't really see you on camera.
Oh, is it? Let's just move this over a little bit, because we're at the edge right there. And all I'm doing is putting the screws in each corner, and one corner will be offset, which appears to be, is it that one? Somebody got someplace to be?
No, my watch is buzzing me. So
Oh, your watch is buzzing you? I can fix that. I have a hammer.
Looks like Christopher Esch gave €5, and he says hi from Germany.
Right on. Thank you, Christoph.
Oh, did I mispronounce his name? It disappeared before I saw it, so apologies, Christoph. Thank you.
Will you give me my electric screwdriver? I'm having some trouble getting these screws started. I'm running out of patience. Thank you.
Still on its original charge.
It is on its original charge. I have not charged this battery yet.
I'm pretty sure every time somebody has to take that out of the drawer, you have to say that. Still on its original charge.
It is. How many months has it been? I'm still trying to figure out why this isn't aligning properly. Let's try this screw here. It's just not going. Why? Maybe. Remember I said one corner is offset, so it's got to be this top one. This one right up here has got to be there somewhere. Where is it? No. Just feel like it needs to be pressed down harder. I got nothing.
Those are the screws that came with it, right?
Yeah.
No other screws?
Yeah. The only time I've ever had this problem before was with a Seasonic power supply not fitting properly into the case. It's always been a Seasonic issue.
Are they giving you half a hole?
No, I'm not finding any hole at all. But it does appear this one is offset, and I'm just going into the wrong side. It's got to be right up here. That's got to be the problem. And there it goes. There we go. Thank you. Black screws, black power supply, black case, it all aligns fine. This one is offset, this one on the top, and I couldn't see it because it was kind of sitting, it wasn't completely straight. So once it was completely straight, I could see there were no holes here for the screw to go in. If we flip the power supply 180 degrees with the fan facing up, then we would want to take this cover off so it could breathe properly. Although I guess you wouldn't have to. It's not sealed. There's holes here, so the cover could stay on. And then with this screw down here would go down here instead. And then it would just be the other way, and the offset screw would be in the opposite corner. Is there anything behind this? Does this open up? Ooh, it does come off. Let's see what's behind this.
That's how you fight with it.
Ah, so there's another foam pad here to bring the noise down. We've got a filter that comes out somehow. This is a big intake. Anytime you have a fan that's drawing air in, you want a filter. You don't want a filter on a fan that's blowing air out.
That makes sense.
And that's how the filter comes off. And you can see more fans can be added, or a big radiator could be put in there if you had a liquid cooler. Clearly this lights up because there's an electrical connection down here and down here, so that must control where the RGB lighting is on this case. That's super easy. And that just pops right back on.
Looks like a really nice case.
I don't have any complaints yet.
But you've only just begun.
Well, this is a pretty high-end, yet also simple, straightforward build. So there's not a whole lot that needs to, as far as any requirements that need to be met, other than just having enough room to put everything in. I am a little concerned about being able to reach those two CPU power connectors once the motherboard's in place. So when we put the motherboard in, it's going to kind of look like this. It's got to go this way. And when we install it, it's going to go in here like so. Oh, you know what? There's plenty of room for me to get my hands in there and put that in. That's fine. That's fine. No problem. On a 200R, I'd be struggling. That would be a real nightmare if we put that in a 200R. We could do it,
right? But
it would be a challenge. You'd have to put the cables on first to make life easier, and then mount the board. But in this case, obviously it's a bit taller than the 200R. I think it's a little bit wider too, but it doesn't really feel much heavier. It looks like it would be heavy, but the case is surprisingly not heavy. In fact, it's even gotten much lighter with the panels off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the case down so I can use gravity to assist me in installing the board.
Grab this camera.
All right, so I'm going to try and get this installed. And we'll put your camera on. There you go. And here we go.
I wish I was a little bit taller.
Story of my life. So you notice I'm picking the board up by the heatsink. And that's why I don't have to worry about electrostatic discharge. It's all on the heatsink here. And I gently set the board in, and then what I'm going to do is adjust it so that back here, if you can look around the back, camera operator, If you look around the back, you'll see the I/O shield and how it's going to fit within that cutout on the case. You're making me nervous around my drink. And we will align that so that that I/O shield fits squarely in the rectangular hole there. And then if you look back up here on top, if you look in from the top, what I have to do now is sort of lift the back of the board and push it forward until that little pin right there goes into that hole. And it holds the board into position so that we can secure the other 8 screws. Remember, there were 3 holes across the bottom, 3 across the middle, 3 across the top. That's a total of 9. And that's a pin that holds the board in position. So there's no place to put a screw there. But the others, that leaves 8. We have to put 8 screws in. And for that, I'm going to need my driver and I'm going to need the screws. We're going to go to the bags of screws that came with the case. And we're going to look for a coarse threaded motherboard screw. Now, if you're not sure which ones they are, look for a bag that has 9 screws, right? Because there were 9 standoffs. There should be the same number of screws. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. These are for like solid state drives. And this is going to be for your 3.5-inch drives. So that's got to be it. Why they give us 8 screws and 9 standoffs, I guess maybe they're assuming you're always going to have the... Oh, no, they're not assuming. It's their post. So technically, there's only 8 standoffs
and 1 post
that can accept a screw, right? Yeah. So that makes sense. So I'm going to now start to put these screws into these holes. There's no particular order that it has to be done in. You should not tighten any of them down until they're all started. That way you can still shift the motherboard left and right and up and down as needed to get the screws to align with the standoffs underneath. And I typically just go for the first ones I see, which is usually a regretful thing to do because that means the ones I can't see, the hard ones, are the last ones. So you should do the hard ones first to get them out of the way. That's what I say. Like that one's in a dark corner. It's very difficult to see. And I actually tightened it down, which I hope I don't regret. I shouldn't. Screwdriver's too fast. Screwdriver does have a torque setting on it. The torque is set very low. That ensures that I will never over tighten the screws. And further, it assures me that all the screws, when tightened down, tighten to the exact same torques. Oh, look, it's blinking now. See it blink?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
That means it's really low.
Time to charge it.
It's going to be time to charge it. I'll have to go back to the video when I unbox this driver, see how many months ago that was. I'm curious how long this thing has lasted on its first original charge. Just 3 more. Oops. I always use a magnetized screwdriver that keeps the screws from dropping into places where they could scratch or cause damage. You wouldn't want a screw to fall inside of your power supply. Oops, that did not go in straight. There we go. It's locked down, locked down. Lock down. I cannot see. That corner is just impossible to see without light. There we go. Just double checking them all. You hear that screwdriver clicking? That's it's hitting its torque setting. Yep. We're all good. Now I can pick the case back up, put it on its feet. So I'm going to switch back over to the main camera. There we go. And you can put that camera back. Here we go. Up and at 'em. Oh, it just got heavier. There we go. That's what it looks like with the motherboard mounted into the case. Now, all this documentation, all these leftover parts, they're all going to go into this motherboard box. As I mentioned, just in case we need manuals in the future, we need to look for anything, power cable, all this stuff can go in the motherboard box. Screwdriver, more screws, and we'll just keep it all together that way. And when I give the customer the box, they'll have all the spare parts all in one place. Nothing they should need right away. But in years, potentially, they might want to do an upgrade or a replacement or a repair, and that's when you're going to want those spare parts. But you shouldn't need them for a long time after getting the computer done. Now, within the bag of cables, I need to move this camera back where it was because we're way offset here. Some camera operator I got. Here we go. Thanks. Right? Exactly. Someone needs some scissors to get that open. All right, so here is a video card cable, motherboard power, and it looks like we're not going to have the additional CPU power. Yeah, these are all SATA cables. I'm going to take them out of here, but these look like this is for peripherals. Now on this board, if you have a board that has, I'm sure that's really loud on the microphone. If you have a board like this one, and it's got both the 8-pin and the 4-pin, ideally you would use them both. That's mostly required for stability when overclocking. This system is not going to be overclocked, and this power supply doesn't support that additional power, that additional CPU power. It is possible, I think, if we look on the back of the power supply, yeah, you could just buy another one of these cables. You could probably go to Amazon and just buy the CPU cable. This connector should be the same as the graphics card power connector, and you could theoretically, if you weren't doing dual video cards, if you were just going to do one video card, you just need one of these cables. Mm-hmm. And if it was really important to you, like your OCD, and you're like, I got an empty connector, I got to fill it, you could order another one of these. You wouldn't have to change your power supply.
Who does that though?
A lot of people do things they don't need to do because it makes them feel better. Whether or not it matters in reality is not a consequence of their decision. It's a human behavior issue. So that being said, because we just have the one cable, one is all we really need if we're running this at stock speeds anyway. I know it's going to go way up here in the corner. It's going to be a very difficult thing to film. There's no sense even trying it because, quite honestly, it's difficult for me to see. In fact, I'd rather you held a light.
I was going to say, do you want me to plug it in?
No, I want you to hold the light. Right there. And that's got to go in.
Hello, Stacy.
That has got to go. Can you bring the light closer? Let's try over. Yeah, it's really not that bad. It's just really hard to see. I'm just listening for a click. I think I got it. And then we'll take this cable. Let's just bring it around here. So now that I've got this cable plugged into the 8-pin connector, I think I've got it plugged in. I may need to see that flashlight.
No, just trying to figure out how to turn it off.
Kind of feels like it's in. I think it's okay. And then I'm going to bring this cable up and out through here. If you will grab that for me and pull it through.
It's like too fast.
Yeah, it's just, it's a little bit more space. Isn't that something?
We'll just put it through here.
Put it through where?
Right here.
No, I don't want to run it there. I want my cable management to be cleaner than that. Hold on a second.
Well, we may have just found something to complain about.
Yeah, that needs to be just a slightly wider gap. Now, another way around this would be to just feed the other side of the cable through, the one I just plugged in, because it has two halves.
Right.
Right? So splitting those halves will then let me fit through that much
it's so
easier.
Close.
Yeah, it's the little clip on it that's just...
Do you think your forceps would help?
No. No. Sometimes you just got to get the right angle on some of these. This one may not be happening. So I'm going to take this back off, and we're going to go back in from this side so I can split the cable like that, and then put one side in and then the other side in. Now, I've never encountered that problem on a case before. So I think
to redo
Be
that.
Quiet could help the end user, you know, by making that, just make that gap just a tiny bit bigger. It needs to be about another millimeter or two wider. But that's really not a big deal. You're typically only going to do this once, and you could, theoretically, like I said, I could have
Done this first time, right?
Well, no, I couldn't have. I would have been right back in the same position, wouldn't I? Well, I suppose I could have fed it through, then connect it to the
Right.
motherboard, and then mount the board.
Ooh, this has a magnet on it. That's cool.
It does. That was sent to me by one of the viewers. It's a pretty great flashlight.
I know.
I'm sure they're not really getting,
With it. Oops,
they're
sorry.
not really getting much of a view here, but trust me, I don't have much of a view, and I'm standing right in front of it.
Trying to figure out how to give you light and stay out of your way at the same time. It's not working out well.
Yeah. Here, you can hold that for me. Now, of course, the heatsink is really what's the problem here with interference. It's not really a case design issue. If the heatsink, if I mount the mother, so there's a lot of different ways to build a system. I could have mounted the board in the case and then put the heatsink on after I did the cabling, and that would have been perfectly acceptable as well. However, I have a routine that I follow, but if I was building in this case often, my routine would be different to accommodate for the case. Here, do me a favor. Can you hold that right around there? Just a little bit higher. Okay. That's one side. Can't tell. Oops. No, that's making it worse. It's reflecting back into my eyes.
Keep trying to find a better angle.
There it is. There, I heard it click. Okay, so now I've got that back on up there in that corner. And then I'm gonna just pull the slack through the other side. And that makes our cable management nice and pretty that way. It's a bit surprising they didn't give us a route for this cable. Unless, you know, they may actually have intended for us to take it across the top and into one of these grommets, but I just don't like that. It's too much cable exposed. And then I'm going to plug this down into one of the connections here on the back of the board. And I think I'm going to place it all the way towards the back. There we go. So that's plugged in down here. And then I've got motherboard power, and then we can test fire it and see if it works. So this is motherboard power. This is the last power connector we have to plug on. I don't need to put the video card in yet. I should be able to use the onboard video to do our first test fire and see if we get a power on self-test. And if so, then that's where this video will end for today because we're just running out of time. So once again, you'll see this one side of this connector, very large. That side is going to go right onto the motherboard. There's only one place where it'll go. It only fits in one direction, and it will give you a click when it's installed. You can tug on it, make sure it doesn't come off. We can use any of these wiring grommets. Use your judgment to what you think looks best. Like for me, I think this middle hole is the best one, but we could also equally use the top one. Whatever you think looks best. We're just gonna push that through. Then we'll come around and we'll plug this in. Again, the power supply is only gonna have one place for each of these connectors to fit. And it's labeled as MB on the back of the power supply. Try and put the rear connector on first, or it's gonna be, you know, the middle connector will get in your way and block it. So you have to work in the back, work your way forward, or you will put your own obstacles in your own way. There's one. And then finally, this one right here. Now we still have all the front port umbilicals, right? We've got the USB connector, the switch, power, all of that still has to be hooked up. But because I'm running low on time, I want to just power it up real quick and make sure that it works. So if I look at the front port umbilicals, that's all these cables coming down in this bundle right here. This is also a good time to get all these wire ties off. We don't want any wires, even wire ties. We don't want them to get brittle over time and fall off and have wire floating around inside your case. So what I'm going to do is just start removing these now. When you're done with your build, before you put your panels back on, I recommend you take every single wire tie off and replace it with a nylon zip tie regardless, so that there's no more of these wire ties in your system when you're done. In the building process, you don't have to be in a big hurry to do that. Just before you button it up and you're finished, you think you're finished. Now, because we have a fan controller, we have a separate power connector to turn those fans on. It is my opinion, and I'll have to talk with the owner of this computer, that I would disconnect the fans from the fan controller, and I would plug these fans directly on the board. I would not have the fan controller. In fact, I would even take this fan controller out.
Are we sure that's not for the RGB?
This may also control the RGB. In fact, yes, down here, this is for the RGB on the bottom, and then these are for the fans on the top.
So it does both.
That does complicate things, but I don't think the RGB has anything other than on or off. I don't even think there's a switch for turning the RGB. Oh yeah, there is. Never mind that. But
and there's these little switches here too.
Yeah, that's probably for different modes of the RGB lighting, I would think. Yeah. That's what there's two switches here. Not sure. Oh, we'll look in the manual for that a bit later. So I'm not going to hook this up right now. That means those fans are not going to turn. And I don't like how they've woven these cables together. I don't like that at all. Wow, it's woven between numerous cables. I would straighten that out. This one's good, this one's okay, that's fine. They're not being used right now anyway. This is the USB 3.1 header on the board. This is a connector you've never seen on video. I don't think you've ever seen one of these before. And it's a really unique connector that is kind of, remember the USB 3 connector, how big the header is? That's the 3.1, smaller.
Wow.
And it's just going to plug right into the board, and it's going to activate that Type-C connector up there, which is great that
it
the
actually
case
looks like a USB connection too.
kind of does.
Kind of funny.
That's an RGB header, so if you want to add more RGB lights of your own that follow the compatibility of the lighting system here, it's pretty standard. This is meant to plug on the board as if it were a fan, and this, like I said, it'll control. Apparently it's going to control all the fans. I thought there was one on the other side, but there's only one.
Zero Core says the switches are for silent mode and performance mode.
Oh, but I thought that's what the switch up front was for. All right, well, we're not hooking that up just yet. We'll follow that up in a future video. Like I said, just running out of time right now, so just want to work quickly here to get our first power on self-test. So here's our front switches, right? So the hard drive LED, power switch, reset switch, hard drive LED. And those can feed in, if you look, where is it going to go on the motherboard? Motherboard is going to go down here, so we can feed it in right through this wiring grommet. Right
I love that. I've never seen a case with that before.
All my cases have these.
The Corsairs has this?
Mm-hmm.
I've cable managed them and didn't even notice them then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then all I'm going to do, I'm just going to plug these on real quick. I've got other videos where I've done close-ups of this, and I know you guys can't see very well in this footage right now, but I just want to do it quick. So that's our hard drive LED. Which side of that is positive? Got to flip it upside down. That's going to go there. And then what's this? Reset goes beside the hard drive LED. Power goes above the reset. And then power LED goes above the hard drive LED. Positive above positive, negative above negative. And we're done. Let's test fire it, see what it does. What do you say?
Smoke test.
Smoke test. See, I would actually, when I look at this, I think I'm going to reroute this cable down in this little gap rather than through the wiring grommet. See what I'm saying? See how that cable, I think it'll look better going through here.
Yeah, I agree.
And we also have that G connector, which we can use, which we can attach all those little cables onto one big connector and slap it on there. So let's grab a power cable. Let's make sure the power supply is in the off position, and it is. So, a couple of things. One, we're going to take these extra cables and put them in this bag, please. And these cutters can go in the drawer. These wire ties can get out of the way. I need a keyboard and a mouse to plug in, so here's a keyboard and mouse.
Here's all your stuff together in a bag.
Just put that on top of the box for me. And then we'll put this over here. And then I need a video cable, an HDMI cable to plug in. And then we're ready to test fire. You notice I don't plug internet in, I don't plug any USB flash drives in.
No
we
point
want
in introducing any problems.
Right. We only want the bare necessities here to make sure that the work we've done thus far is correct before we go any further with adding the video card. If it doesn't turn on and we've put everything together, we don't know where to start our diagnosis. So if what we've got doesn't work, then we're diagnosing fewer parts.
Exactly.
That makes the diagnosis faster. So HDMI is going to go right here. We're going to use built-in video that's on the CPU.
One less thing to troubleshoot.
Yep. And I got to plug this into the video capture card here. Should be this plug right here. And the last thing I plug in is power, just to be safe. Safety first. That's going to go back here. And then I'll flip the switch on the power supply to the on position. Ooh, we got some RGB lighting up. And let me just step where you are. Can you take that out of the way, please? Okay.
Extinguisher ready.
Let's go to camera 2 on this. Let me just bring this down a little bit. Let's put it right here. I'm gonna hit the power switch. I heard it click. CPU fan is turning. Got a motherboard light lit up. The front and rear fans aren't turning because they're plugged into the controller. We haven't given power to the controller. We haven't plugged any of that in. Because this is our first boot, give it a minute for it to do something. Just relax, give it some time. There it goes. There's our power on self-test, our BIOS screen. And we should get an error of some sort. It appears that it's turned itself off. Now it's turned itself back on. What it's doing on the first boot is it's checking what our RAM is. It's checking what our CPU is. It's adjusting itself to the new hardware we've installed. And that's why it's important that you're patient during your first boot. Don't expect it to just fire right up the first time. So it's getting familiar with the hardware you've selected to plug into the board. It's adjusting itself accordingly. And then eventually it will give us an error that it can't boot.
The motherboard has a neat light up logo on the back.
Here we go. And it brings us right into the BIOS because there's nothing to boot from. Oh yeah.
Cool.
I think all of that's controllable through the RGB software. And you can see there's some lights on the board. It's similar to the the Z370 version of this board that I was using. If you look through there, you can see the lights lit up, and you can control the color of those lights through the software from GIGABYTE on the board. And then the case itself has RGB with those. That's not going to work because that's powered through the fan controller, which we've not given power to, because we don't want anything to interfere with our first boot. So those fans and the RGB lights are not necessary for us to do this so far. And everything we've done is working correctly. So at that point, because we're a little after 5 o'clock, that's our wrap up time for the day. And we will have to pick this up on Monday or maybe Sunday. I'll have to see what my schedule's like to do the operating system install. We'll also update if there's a BIOS, we'll check for an updated BIOS and put that on before the operating system, just to be clear. Then we can install the GPU, which of course everybody's looking forward to, the black edition of the RTX 1080 Ti, sorry, 2080 Ti.
With its little missing corner. Why did they do that?
That's just a corporate branding at its best. And if everything works, the final thing we'll put in is the Wi-Fi card, and we'll make sure that all that works. And then it gets shipped off to Florida to live with Midi and his son there in Florida. His son, I understand, is getting a bar mitzvah here very soon. So
oh, exciting.
Mazel tov. All right, so just running out of time, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll give a shout out to everybody who's contributed again during today's broadcast. Christoph Esch saying hello from Germany. Madi and his numerous contributions today. And of course, this is all Madi's hardware. So appreciate him allowing us to film this and share it with all of you. Fares El Manai, John Brady, Your Music Sucks is the name of this other user. Steve Devine, Siri Svenberg, Winston Eng Lu, Jeremy Kramer, Tom Jackson, Alan Holmes, Zerloth, Ted Trish, Spryweb, Jesse Kirk, Jeremy Kramer, I think I said that, Soren Rasmussen, Paul from Mars, Wire Soeli, or just call him Joe, Ben Fitzpatrick, Steve Welch, K. Cordius Technology, Thomas Carter, James Ramey, David Kane, Jan Milanov, Fritzer, Past Me, Donnie Seeger, Thomas Beckenstow, Darren Gordon, let me repeat that, Darren Gordon Curl, Jim Desposito, John Craig, Jeremiah Beckwith, Justin Havu, Andy Nicolau, Chester Hughes. And the first contribution that came in even before we started rolling was Madi. So thank you, Madi, for all of your support of the channel and for, again, allowing us to share your build with the community. Thanks for everybody, all my friends in blue moderating the chat today. Those of you who are not yet blue in the chat, I hope one day to make you blue. It just comes with time. I like to see people that are kind, thoughtful, and supportive to other members of the community, not looking to prove how much better or smarter you are than anybody else. We don't care about how smart you are. We care about how nice you are. So as long as you're a nice, thoughtful person, you're always welcome into our community. And we hope to see this community continue to grow and grow and grow with like-minded individuals who are kind and courteous and thoughtful to each other. What a crazy idea.
Right?
To find that on the internet?
On the internet?
Weird, right? We'll do it. Troll McTrollington just contributed $13.37. That's a one way to say leet, right? It's final stealth contribution. Thank you, Troll McTrollington. Oddly, Troll McTrollington is the
Not
opposite.
A troll.
Yeah.
Right. He's very nice.
Maybe,
and Madi, it looks like Madi got another one in.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 in total from Madi. I didn't repeat people's names who gave numerous times. I do appreciate all the contributions to the channel. And yeah, that's going to wrap up the build so far. There will be a part 2 coming up here in the next couple of days, and that will deal with final umbilical cables, a couple of cables, hooking up the fan controller, the RGB lights. That's all sort of just hooking up one more power cable.
And unboxing this bad boy.
That's also going to need a power cable as well. And then we'll run benchmarks with regards to see how well that Mugen 5 is cooling this chip with Prime 95. We'll run Heaven benchmark. We'll see what our frames per second is and watch the power consumption on the kilowatt meter there. And we'll see how much power this thing takes up while it's doing it. And like I said, BIOS update, OS install, OS updates, Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer, and then cable management. And it's out the door, and we're on to the next build. I have 2 more builds after this, so trying to get through them in a hurry. Guys, thank you so much for your questions and your participation during the chat today. Even if you did get a snarky answer, that's part of the fun. People paid Don Rickles to be insulted by him.
You can't be Holzman's without the snark.
Snarkmans?
It's built in. It's inherent.
And a lot of those questions I get asked a lot. I want to remind you, there is the Quick Tips channel. Please check out the Quick Tips channel. We're trying to grow that channel so we can monetize it. It needs 4,000 subscribers or something.
It needs 4,000 watch hours.
Or is that what it is?
Halfway there.
So we have about like 2,000 watch. It's hard to get that many watch hours when your videos are under 10 minutes each.
It is. I'm cranking out those videos as much as I can, but appreciate everybody who goes and checks out that channel, and hopefully you get lots out of it too.
And Rich says, call me if you need a cameraman. Absolutely, Rich. I will need a cameraman. So we'll talk.
I'm sure you would do much better than I did. I'm too short. Half this video is like just your head.
How was that? You never worked the camera before,
I've
right?
never worked the camera.
You ever want to do that again?
I don't mind. The question is, would you ever want me to do it?
Well, you're going to watch this video back when you edit it.
Right.
And you were pretty critical of other camera people. Let's see if you think you did a better job. Right. That's what I'm curious about.
Right.
So we'll see what you think of yourself.
I'm the one that's got to edit it. If I can't make any usable footage out of my own camera work, I'm going to be mad.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, on behalf of Linda and myself,
bye for now.